All right, Wednesday night Krug show. Look who's in the house. John Lund is here. We're talking Niners. We got a lot to get to. Let's not wait even one more second. Start the show. All right, welcome to the Krug show. Wednesday night. Happy February the 26th. John Lynch spoke today in Indy at the site of the NFL Scouting Combine. The players hit the surface tomorrow for some of the workouts. Really looking forward to watching that over the next few days. And, of course, we're brought to you here by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. If you're watching another part of the country, you're like, I don't know where those places are. They're in Northern California, but check them out. If you're ever here in Northern California, get some brisket chili. Great barbecue spot. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, along the Monterey Peninsula. Thanks to my friend Anthony Catania, who's a proud sponsor of the Krug Show as well. 831-521-5264 if you want to get a hold of Anthony for all your sports cards and collectible needs. And let's not, last but certainly not least, our friends at Mancini's are also a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And thanks to Mancini's for being a sponsor of the Krug Show. I'm loving my Mancini's bed. It is fantastic. Best bed I've ever had by far. And I can't say enough about how great Mancini's is. I mean it so much that I'm going to change the screen. There we go. We're going to put their logo right there in the corner of the screen. But yeah, Mancini Sleep World is a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. There it is. They offer 120-night guarantee, a range of brands and price points. I love my bed. You're going to love yours as well. You get free next day delivery. All you got to do, click the link below or go to sleepworld.com and find a bed that works for you. And if you type in the code KRUG10, K-R-U-E-G 10, you're going to save 10%. So if it's a $5,000 mattress, you're saving $500. So Krug 10, and you'll get 10% off in store or online at their website, which is sleepworld.com. And thanks to Mancini's for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, today in Indy, John Lynch spoke, and we actually got a bunch of different information that came out today. And Johnny, what stood out to you? I mean, we can start in any direction. He talked about everybody. He talked about Juice. He talked about Kittle. He talked about Drake Jackson. He talked about Greenlaw. He talked about Brian Greasy's departure. He talked a little bit about Deebo, a little bit about Ayuk, Kyle Juszczyk, CMC. I mean, he really ran the gamut and threw out a lot today. We got a lot to chew on. Suddenly, we had nothing yesterday, but today, because of this talk in Indy, we got about 20 different topics to talk about. Where do you want to start?
Man, there's so much. I have a piece up at johnlundunleashed.com. I just got done stealing all of David Lombardi's videos and cutting them up and then talking about each one of them. I'm going to go off the board because you talked about everything and all the players. I thought the most intriguing thing was there was a question about Brandon Ayuk, and he swerved away from that question ever so deftly. And he started talking about getting younger and getting cheaper and those kind of things. So we need to reset that thing. We've been the highest spending team for the last 4 years. And so he's giving you with all those players and all those things he said, he's giving you the game plan for the offseason. Now, if the Giants said that, you'd be like, oh my God, they're getting cheap. The Giants, you don't trust the Giants. And you're saying basically that they're going cheap. The Niners aren't going cheap. But what he's saying is that if you look at the Eagles in the drafts, and you and I talk about this all the time, and the Rams the way they drafted, and the Lions the way they drafted, those teams didn't get cheaper. They got better because they drafted so well. And he thinks that they're going to have 10 picks in the draft. He thinks they're going to have 4 in the top 100. And so what he's essentially saying is something that you and I often discuss, which is 2024 draft is a great start. But you're going to be great, and the Eagles and the Lions and the Rams are perfect examples because they hit draft, boom, 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 3 in a row. When Seattle won the Super Bowl with the Russell Wilson gang, it was Russell Wilson, it was Bobby Wagner, it was Richard Sherman, it was all those guys. It was Cam Chancellor, it was Earl Thomas, it was Russell Okung, it was KJ Wright, it was Bobby Wagner, like one after the other, after the other. After those 3 drafts, they won a Super Bowl off of. Philadelphia the same way. Detroit's in contention the same way. If they don't lose Aiden Hutchinson, I don't know, maybe they're in that mix too. But he's essentially saying that, look, we're not going to go out there on the first day and go crazy on a Hargrave like we did. If people have dreams of some first day guy and there's some big surprise that the Niners have up their sleeve, that's not what they're going to do. They're going to re-sign Brock. They know the number went up. Kittle's number jumps to $22 million. That deal's getting done. Warner's deal jumps to $29 million. That deal's getting restructured. And he's telling you that they're going to have to start winning through the draft, and they're not going to be able to pay the money that they've paid in the past. And they're going to have to get back on track and retool this thing, not rebuild or anything like that, but retool this thing based on the draft. And they're not going to go out and go crazy. So I thought it was interesting because the original question was, we've heard these rumors of Brandon Ayuk and possibly being traded. And he said something to the effect of, yeah, that's what's going to happen when you have really good players. But then he swerved into about a 2-minute conversation or 2-minute retort on getting younger, getting better, balancing this thing out because they're so top heavy. And they found out last year that they don't have the depth once guys get hurt. So that's what he talked about. So if you think that they're going to go out and they're going to spend all this money and Dre Greenlaw is going to ask for multi-years and they're going to get it, I think he asked those. Talanoa Hufunga's not getting what you and I have talked about, which is Xavier McKinney's 4-year, $69 million deal. He is gone. Dre Greenlaw is only going to be here if Dre Greenlaw plays ball and does a make good 1-year deal with the Niners. He basically said that they've got to nail the draft like these good teams in the NFC have done over the last 3 years. 24 is great, but now 25, you got to have another one. And they're not going to overspend. They're going to do the priorities of Brock and Kittle and redo Warner and do all those things. And I think that was the thing that stood out. The other thing quickly, Krug, because I want you to retort on that quickly. The one thing is he gave an endorsement off to the side, not on the podium, but off to the side on Jake Moody. And everyone freaked out. Jake Moody is going to have competition in camp. That's a fact. And if he misses kicks in the preseason, people are going to go bananas. They have a new special teams coach that doesn't know squat about Jake Moody, didn't draft him when he was here, doesn't have any ties to him. So this is going to be a competition where they don't bring in a camp leg. They bring in a real leg. I don't believe for a second that John Lynch and the 49ers organization have the utmost confidence, even though John off to the side said they did. So there you go. There's a place to start.
Okay, well, Jake Moody aside, I mean,
we don't want to lead kickers.
I break out in hives when I see Jake Moody, and I like him. I've interviewed him and stuff, but we'll talk about him in a sec.
Yeah,
but let's talk about the quote from John. I think this is the quote you're talking about. He said, "At some point, you have to have you have to reset a little bit, or at least recalibrate." He says you can't just keep pressing the pedal. And I think there's some good that can come out of that. We need to get younger. I think we're the oldest team in football, trying to make a run at the deal last year. And I think it's good to constantly get younger. Our draft class last year was a great move towards that. We'll have 4 picks in the top 100. If the comp picks happen like we see it, that's always a calculation. We'll have 10 picks overall, and we're excited about adding more youth to a great core of players that we already have. I read that on 49er website.
So what that says basically is, look, everybody, it kind of encapsulates everything, and then you start getting into the players. But that tells you the direction in this offseason. It's not going to be about some surprise first-day guy like they did with Hargrave. It's not going to be going out and getting crazy. It doesn't mean they can't sign some guys, but it's going to be about Brock. It's going to be about getting Kittle extended. It's going to be about getting some of these contracts in line. They can't have Fred Warner, as good as he is, playing at a cap number of $29.2 million. They can't have Kittle's cap number jump from 12 to 22, which it's scheduled to do. They're going to get those things under control, and then they're going to turn around to the draft with 10 picks, and they can move around with those 10 picks, and they're going to get what they hope to be quality players, and then they're going to give those guys an opportunity to play because they have no other hope to do so. And the other thing is, by releasing Deebo, which I'm all for, but by releasing or trading Deebo, you're going to take a hit there too. So they realize that they're going to get a hit. They're not going to have to spend a ton of money. And whether people like it or not, young players, just like in 2024, they got to play. They got to come through. So that means that this draft, all drafts are like this, but they got to nail the draft for 2-3 years in a row because that's what they're up against with Philly, Detroit, and LA.
Yeah, well, and they screwed it up for 3 straight years. So guess what? If you screw it up for 3 straight years, you don't get to have one good one, and then you're all back. No, it's not the way it works. You screw up 3 straight years, you're going to need to hit for 3 straight years to kind of get back on the beam. Now, the one interesting thing, these guys, Schefter and Rappaport and these guys, do they know football? I mean, maybe not, but they just kind of regurgitate what a lot of people say, right? And Schefter was asked about this draft class. Now, does Adam Schefter really know the ins and outs of this draft class?
Way out of his lane, by the way. He's so out of his lane lately. Oh my God.
But it's not like he knows this, but it doesn't matter because he's just repeating what people who do know told him, because that's what his job is. That's what he does, right? And he had an interesting quote today, and the quote was, "The player that you get at number 10 in this draft is similar to the player you get at 35." And I totally agree with him, and I do think, it's going to make trading back difficult, but it won't be impossible because there's always some coveted player that
everybody falls in love with somebody, right? Everybody falls in love with somebody
or a position. I got to get this guy, and there's 2 tight ends go in a row, and suddenly I got to get my tight end. Whatever. Yeah, teams panic. The clock's ticking.
I'll give you a great one. I'll give you a great one that talked today. Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle from Michigan, talked today. And the dude is full of exuberance. He's hilarious. He's funny. He played last year, Krug, at 345. You're going to love this kid.
I love him.
He's now at 332. He moves like a dancing bear. Someone is going to fall in love with Kenneth Grant because not only is the tape good, he's this great big. He reminds you of Dexter Lawrence because Dexter Lawrence has that gregarious personality and he's this big guy and this kind of stuff. Kenneth Grant was saying that he's going to run a sub-5. He says he's going to run like in the 4.8, 4.9 range at 332. Like someone's going to go, oh my God, I've got to have that guy. And you're right. Yeah, Schefter can say all those kind of things. I do too. I'd love to see him at 11. But those are the kind of guys.
He's not Mozzie Smith. He's not some.
And he's got a great personality. Someone's going to fall in love with that guy. I'm telling you. And they're going to want to move up. So I don't say Schefter is wrong. I just say that every year in the draft, because it's the draft, someone's going to fall in love with someone, and they're going to go up in the draft because they think that that guy's going to be great.
Right. And you never know who it could be. I mean, in Kuiper's mock draft, he has the number 1 wide receiver in the draft, Tedoroa McMillan, going 17. So any person after about 5 or 6 who needs a receiver and says, you know what? Do we trade up we give up our 2nd and 4th round pick and trade up with the 49ers so we can get to 11 to make sure that we get Tedoroa McMillan. The other guy is Ashton Jeanty from Boise. Somebody's going to fall in love with Jeanty. Dallas picks right after the Niners. Who knows? They might be able to tell Dallas, hey, you know what? We're gonna trade this pick. We know Dallas is going to go running back probably. So, I mean, we're going to trade this pick to somebody who's going to take Gianti right in front of your face, Jerry and his idiot kid.
Funny with that.
Unless you give us your 12th pick and your 2nd round pick and a 4th round pick. And then guess what? Jerry and his idiot kid sit there and go, man, we got to have Gianti. We got to have him. We got to have him. Oh, damn it, Kyle Shanahan. He's lying to us. He's lying to us, Steven. Then they sit there.
I can see the Chargers jumping them or something, because Harbaugh wants to run the ball or something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, one of these teams. I mean, Seattle, right. With their brand new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, they want to get away from Ryan Grubb. We throw it 75% of the time, and they want to be a run the ball team, and so they might jump up. So I mean, there's going to be options. My point is just that if you're the Niners and Schefter got this from some scout who told him that, hey, in this draft, 10 and 35 are not that different. And I agree completely. The guy that you take at 10 could be, the exact same guy or maybe not quite as good as the guy that you pick at 25. So move down. If you're the 49ers, if you can. You don't, it takes 2 to tango. If you can, move down, get a couple extra picks. Because you may miss. I mean, just because you have 15 needs doesn't mean you need 15 picks. If you really have 15 needs, you probably need 18 picks.
Right.
So, and if it's just about moving around for extra picks, heck, I mean, I've been doing these mock drafts for a month now. I mean, it's pretty easy to move around in these mock drafts.
Oh, I know. It's unbelievable. Real quick, because we want to get to everything Lynch said today, and that's why people tuned in. They also tuned in because you might have beef with someone. There's lots of people saying you got beef, so I don't know if you want to go there. But since you brought up Schefter, these insiders, and I know people know this, but I have to remind them of this, and I think Diana Rossini's great. But what happens this time of year is you're going to get a lot of crap thrown because these teams know from a leverage perspective that they can tell these insiders, you got to report these things for me because you know what? Free agency's coming up. You want scoops, you want stories. Draft's coming up. You want scoops, you want stories. So they're like, fine. So Diana Rossini on this whole Stafford thing, which affects the 49ers, comes out and says in her podcast, with Chase Daniel that that the Rams are fine with it. No, the word was comfortable. The Rams are comfortable with Jimmy Garoppolo as their starting quarterback. Like comfortable if you had a full fresh meat suit on and you jumped into a piranha tank, that would be more comfortable than having Jimmy Garoppolo as your starting quarterback. It's so stupid. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to bluff Stafford's camp. Like, hey, we don't need you, man. We got Jimmy G right here. And she reports that. And it's like, look, Les Snead called her up and said, look, I need a favor for you. Free agency's coming. The draft's coming. I'll give you stuff, but you got to throw this out there. And it's like, God, if I'm Diana Rossini, it's like, look, Les or Sean McVay, whoever called her, it's got to be believable stuff. Like, I'm not putting my credibility on the line to say that you're fine with Jimmy Garoppolo because everyone knows you're not. Like that doesn't scare the Stafford camp. They're laughing their ass off at that. So these insiders become so laughable this time of year because they know that they've got to run to press with this crap so that they'll get inside information during the draft. And she's really good at what she does. I'm not meaning to call her out, but it's like, why would you even do that? Why would you even say on your podcast that the Rams are comfortable with Jimmy? Because they're not. And so what it does is it makes people believe it. And then you and I have to sit there and go, God, come on, man. Like, you can imagine how at 49ers HQ, how big of a party they would throw if they decided to trade Stafford and just say Jimmy's our quarterback moving forward. Oh, my God.
And if you're covering it, why not report it like, hey, this is what I heard. I don't believe it, but this is what I heard. I mean, that's the way I would report it. Hey, man, this is what I've heard. The Rams are comfortable with Jimmy. I don't believe that for a second, but that's what I've heard. And then you'll have more respect with everybody. You'll have more respect with your audience. You'll have more respect with these people that are trying to get you to carry their water because they'll say, hey, you know what? Diana Rossini's gonna put this out there, but then she's also gonna tell everybody that she doesn't think it's true. So she's a little bit more independent, and we can't just totally use her.
And I get it. Like these guys, that's how they get their scoops. This is how it works. The agent will say, hey, I'll give you information, but you got to get this out for me. Like it happens during free agency with Boris because he wants hey, the Yankees are in, the Dodgers are in, the Red Sox are in. So that drives his players' price up. The Rams go to Rossini and say, we're going to try to get leverage with Stafford's camp. Tell them we're fine with Jimmy, even though everybody knows you're not. Like to a certain extent, if I'm one of those insiders, look, I'll help you out. And I appreciate you helping me out and give me inside information, but I can't go to the masses and say you're comfortable with Jimmy Garoppolo because that's stupid and laughable, and everybody knows you're not. So please don't make me say that, Les Snead. And then he's like, sorry, man, not going to tell you what we're doing in free agency. So it gives you a little bit of an insight into how this whole game works because then everybody runs to social media and talks about it, but some things just aren't believable, and even the dumbest people know that. So it doesn't serve a purpose. So I saw that yesterday, and I was like, why would you even report that? It just exposes you as a puppet for the Rams, and now I can't believe anything that you say.
Well, stupid. It's like, and here's the thing about this. I mean, we could go into this for this.
I know we want to talk about Lynch. I know, and
this is a totally different topic. But let me just say this:
like, oh my God,
proximity,
right,
can be a form of corruption. Okay, so why? Because when you socialize with the people that you cover, and I'm not saying she does, but I'm just saying when you get too close, then after a while, you know more than you can say. You know more than you can tell your audience. So then essentially, you're on the inside, but you're become one of the people that you're covering, and you're kind of betraying your audience. And, the bottom line is, that kind of makes you part of the team. And I always get the feeling that some of the baseball beat writers felt like they were part of the team. Bro, you're not. You're not on the team.
They get mad at you sometimes.
You're not on the team.
From people,
somebody tells Sluss she ain't on the team. I'll see her this weekend. I'll mention it to her.
All right, we can go back to John. I'm sorry.
But the bottom line is,
off on an off ramp there.
When you get too close to the story, you're keeping their secrets more than telling their secrets, and your job as a media person is to tell their secrets. So proximity can be a form of corruption, and it's better to be at least a step or two removed, I think, and unimpacted by the participants. Do I want to interview with Kyle Shanahan? Yeah, but I don't want to carry his water. Do I want an interview with John Lynch? Yeah, but I don't want to tell you that every move he makes is great in exchange. Do I want to have players come on the YouTube channel? Sure, but I'm not going to sit there and sing the praises. I'll give you an example of one, and this was tough because this guy's my buddy. I'm friends with Doug Hendrickson, or was. He was Josh Johnson's agent, among others. We all know what happened in the NFC Championship game the day that Josh Johnson played off the bench for Brock Purdy, and you all know me. So I talked about that game, and I didn't pull any punches, and that I tossed out Josh Johnson's name and buried him because I didn't like the fact that he walked out on the Niners in that situation. Now he got hurt, so there's that whole thing. But I mean, I went to town on Josh Johnson. Well, I mean, his agent was like, bro, why you got to go to town on my guy? I'm like, because it's the fucking truth. And that's what I'm speaking, the truth. And if we can't deal in the truth, then there's the door, right? And I don't care if you ever come on the show ever again, or any of your clients ever come on again, because we're speaking the truth. That's what we do here. We speak the truth. I'm giving the audience my honest opinion. If Josh Johnson played great, I would have been like, Josh, awesome. I interviewed the guy. Guy went to Oakland Tech. He's a great guy. We know some of the same people. Some of my wife's friends taught him at Oakland Tech. I mean, I've had warm conversations with him, but he played like S. It was the biggest game of biggest moment of the year, and I said so. Period. End of story. That's it. I'm not carrying your water. I'm not carrying your client's water. I'm not telling a bunch of lies to my audience so everybody can feel more comfortable. I'm going to speak the truth. It's the Krug Show. That's what we do here.
Well, we all knew that when Brock went down, the game was over. And so what else are you supposed to say? He's been on it was over. There's 32 teams in the NFL. He's been on 34 of them. He's been on every team and then some. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm not here to bash the guy.
So let's no, but I mean, don't the people who have the most credibility are generally the people that have connection, but they're not so in-house that they potentially are bought and paid for.
Good call.
Just always know the score, and you can tell for yourself. You can tell who's in it for truth and who's in it for whatever, glad handing by the team. But it's just not the way I do it. All right, let's talk a little bit about Lynch though, because there were a bunch of things that came out today. Negotiations with Brock Purdy's agent have begun. And yet, and he restated this line that they keep saying, we want Brock to be here as long as we're here. But then he also wouldn't guarantee that the deal would get done at all, and was like, I don't know. I mean, we hope to get it done. The franchise tag was announced this week for quarterback at $41 million and change. What do you think, John? Are they going to get this done, or are they going to? And is it going to be like, hey, Brock, the franchise tag's $41 million. We'd rather give you a deal with more so then we can play with the money and have more under the cap. But I think the Niners may try to start, their offer right around $41 million, which is, I know the agent, and the agent's going to want closer to $60 million. So there's a very good chance this doesn't get done. This is a very difficult negotiation. What do you envision happening here? I was hoping that these guys would freaking get it done by March, but I have no confidence in that right now.
No, and I think your fine, sweet, clean viewers need to know one thing. It's not, you don't have to be the greatest, you have to be the latest. That's just how the NFL works. So we're way past the stage of what Brock deserves. It's not what Brock deserves, it's what Brock can get. And Brock can get $55 to $60 million. So that's what the deal is going to be. Now, how is it going to be structured is more the biggest part. And they're not going to do a franchise tag at $41 million because as much as he's going to make, and by the third year of the deal, it's going to be in the $70 million range. But remember, because the cap is going up, that's kind of misleading. It's just the percentage of the cap that the quarterback is going to take up. So no matter what he makes, it continues to go up. But Brock's going to get paid. It's just a matter of, as you said, how quickly is Brock going to get paid? That's the quickest part of this whole thing. In the first year of his deal, maybe 15 to 18 million versus 41. They can't do a deal where it starts in the 40 range. They just can't afford to be able to do that. So even though they took the 50 million and the thing went up, they had 50 million from this year to their last year to this year. They carried it over the most in the NFL. They're going to get a deal done. But as you said, Krug, if you want to win, if you want to stay in the window that you think you're still in and can compete with Detroit and Philly and the Rams and the Packers and everything, this has got to get done soon, because even though Ayuk is not going to play in the first few games, they got to get together and throw, and he's got to get together and throw with Pearson. He's got to be that quarterback leader. Remember Alex Smith when Harbaugh first came and they were locked out, and he went down to San Jose State and he brought everybody together, and all of a sudden the Niners were good. I'm not saying that was the main reason. They already had talent, but you got to get on the same page. People have to realize, and you know this better than anybody, 300-pounders are coming out, and you have 2.2 seconds to get rid of the ball. You got 4 or 5 receivers in the route, and you've got to be reading telepathically their mind. Inside leverage, that means you go outside. Outside leverage, you're going inside. A 7-yard dig is got to be 7 yards and back. Brock's arm strength is not the greatest in the world, so he's an anticipatory thrower who's got to know where the player is going to be at the right time. Why is Deebo leaving the organization? Because he can't do that, and they can't be on the same page because Deebo can't get open, can't get off. So the guys they have in Ayuk who can get open, and in Pearsall who can get open, and in Jennings you just throw it and he can go over guys. That's why these guys are on the team. Brock's got to believe that you're going to be where you are when you're supposed to be there. So how do you do that? How does that work when a 300-pound man is trying to rip your face off and you have 2.1 seconds to decide and look at 4 and 5 routes that where you're going to go with the football? You've got to have some sort of telepathic nature about you. How do you get that? You get it in the offseason by throwing again and again and again and stopping, and Brock saying to Ayuk, dude, this is where you need to be on that play. Hey, Jennings, this is, hey, hey, Pearsall, this is, you get it in the offseason by working and working and working. Well, what's Brock's agent going to tell him if he doesn't have a contract? You're not getting your ass out there. I don't care if you have no pads on. I don't care if you're on a beach. It's like Dr. Seuss. You could be on a beach. You could be on the grass. You could be a piece of ass. You're not getting on. You're not playing. You're not playing football.
You could have a piece of ham, right? Sam. Yeah, I am.
Exactly. I don't care if you're throwing to a kid at a birthday party. You're not doing it. You can sit in a chair and do it, but your arm might fall off. You might sprain an ankle. Robert Edwards, remember, ripped his knee up on the sand.
Yeah.
That's why there's no more sand game. Like Brock Purdy, by his agent, who I know works for him, but his agent tells him what to do in this situation. You can't throw a football. You can't go out and throw. You can't do anything with your receivers until we have pen to paper and you've got, X amount of million in the bank. So until it happens, and you keep saying this, but I just want to explain it to people. The reason why the timing of it matters is because it's got to get done before they can get on that field. And I don't mean in helmet and pads, and I don't mean in training camp. I mean where Brock has a bunch of money and says, we're all meeting in San Diego, and we're going to throw the football, and we're going to get on the same damn page. And in order to do that, he's got to have a contract done.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I totally agree. Everything you said, I totally agree with. Here's the thing. And I saw somebody wrote this a month ago. So it's not my genius. It's somebody else's genius. And the person was like, hey, you know what? A bad deal for the Niners in March or April is a way better deal than a great deal for the Niners in August.
Yeah. No doubt. Great point.
You got to get this done. It's like you got to have, I mean, dude, I've been following football for a long time. I can't remember the team that went to the Super Bowl with a quarterback that held out. I mean, I just can't remember that. I mean, I don't think it exists. And in today's complexity of the NFL, with all their complex offense and you got to be there for the OTAs. You got to be there for the OTAs. You got to be there for the installation. You're a leader. You're the leader. And not only that, he's probably their hardest working offensive player. He's definitely one of their most conscientious players. He's one of the leaders. He's a veteran. They do look to him. I mean, Shanahan had him and Demo and Orr speak up before a game, middle of the season. You remember that. And the reason for that was because he looked at Demo and said, hey, this guy's 24. I looked at Brock. He's like 24. These are the guys that have to kind of ascend to that leadership position. So it's really important they get this deal done. To me, it's not even about the price and this and that. It's more about the timing. You got to get this thing done. I would say you got to get it done by the draft. Yeah. And in my world, John, I actually really believe that it would be in their best interest to get it done by March 12th, because I do think that they've carved out enough cap room that they didn't just earmark it for Brock. I think they also want to get something done in free agency. I don't think that they're going to be a monster in free agency, but I think they're going to take, kind of like Green Bay did last year. Josh Jacobs, come here. Xavier McKinney, come here. We'll take two real good players and add them to our mix. So I think it's maybe behooves them. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to get done by March if you can, so you can play in free agency.
Well, the other thing too is that I know that they've done in the past this stuff where, they're getting all these deals done late. All those deals, Warner, Kittle, Bosa, going down the line, all those deals were done around training camp. This is just not, as you pointed out, the same thing. You got to have your leader in place. You got to get the deal done. And here's the thing. I know that the dotting of the I's, crossing of the T's, how much money up front, how much guaranteed money, the funny money, all this stuff, because all you got to do is look at when a guy's contract explodes, and that's really when it's over. Like Ayuk has an $11.2 million cap year or cap number this year. In the third year, the deal goes to 44. He's not playing on a $44 million cap number.
No,
that contract is over at that point. They'll redo it. So they know. Here's the thing about the two sides. They both know what the number is. They both know the dance. Hey, guys, and this is what I would do if I were Brock's agent. I'd say, look, guys, we can do this dance for a couple of months. We all know where it's going to end up. We've looked at all the other contracts, just like you have with Tua and Jordan Love and Trevor Lawrence and all these deals that just got done over the last couple of years. Can we just not do that? Because we got to get this guy in. This is not, this is not Bosa on the edge. This is not any of these guys. You got to have them in, like you said. So let's assume that we just fast forward this dance a little bit and get the money where it's supposed to be and get the guy in, because I know what normally happens, and so do you. Deadlines spur action. Well, really, the deadline is camp, but not for him. It's not. It's exactly what you said. It's OTAs. The thing's got to get done before OTAs so he can be comfortable and they can throw together. That's really the deadline. This is not like another position. So when John
especially if you bring in a new receiver, either in the draft or free agency,
and they might have to do that because Ayuk's not going to be around right away. So I understand what John's saying. It might not get done. These are all leverage things for him to say, but can they just cut the crap? Like like when you're in business sometimes and that whole thing and it's going to go back and forth, or when you're dating a girl or something, it's like, I got to wait 2 days to call her. There's a protocol. I don't want to seem too eager. Look, man, cut the crap. You either like her, you don't, you call her up one day and go, look, we can play this game and I can call you in 48 hours. Or we can be like, hey, we dig each other and we're going to go out right now. So just cut through some of that stuff that you normally would do and just say, let's get to the number, because we know what Tua got. We know what Lawrence got. We know what Jordan Love got. We know it. And you're the latest. So tack 10% on it, get the guarantees in place. Honestly, for as much money as we're talking about here, I understand that it is complicated, but to be honest, it's really not that complicated. The parameters have already been set. So cut the crap and let's go.
It's like, once again, it's like guys' dating advice. Yeah, dating advice from Krug and Lund. Don't make her wait. Don't make her wait 4 days. Who are you fooling?
Okay, who are you fooling? 48 hours to call her. It's like,
life's too short. Life's too short. Show some vulnerability. She'll love you for it. Anyway. The Niner cap situation. See how I segued so smoothly into the Niner cap situation? Do you see that?
Well done. Yeah.
This is not my first
idea. You are amazing.
49ers cap situation. They currently have they have more cap space than 80% of the NFL. And they've yet to release Javon Hargrave. They've yet to, either release or trade Deebo. They've yet to extend Kittle, which would drag his cap number down. They've yet to do the Purdy deal. They've yet to restructure Fred Warner, and they still have more cap space than 80% of the league. My point is just that they got a lot of cap. They got a lot of cap room.
They do.
So that they can play these games. You do want to get the Purdy deal done before free agency, if possible, just so you know what you have to spend. Speaking on that front, there was a rumor today coming out of Indy saying that the Niners are being linked, I should say, with a number of the free agent safeties. And the two guys that were thrown out were Javon Holland of the Dolphins, who's actually a Bay Area kid. He went to O'Dowd,
which you and I talked about last time we were together.
Yeah, somehow Javon Holland's dad ran into one of my kids. Javon in the summertime did my kids were like counselors at a camp, and he kind of came to the camp and spoke to the kids as a Bay Area superstar that made it pro. And so they had a chance to meet the dad. And, Dad was a big fan of Cambiar and knows guys like yourself and me and others. And, so he was like real complimentary, but he's also like, hey, man, Javon would love to be here. And I don't, that was a year or two ago. Now he's a free agent. The other name was Justin Reed, who's Eric Reed's little brother, who plays for the Chiefs. I don't know how Eric Reed feels about the Niners. I mean, he should have a good feeling about the Niners. They treated him really well in all those years when he was like, shoulder to shoulder with Cap and this and that.
A linebacker at the end. Remember how bad he was?
I know. Well, you know what?
He was god-awful.
Eric Reed had a concussion or two rookie year. Remember, you and I were doing the pre and post, and he just was like, from that point on, he's like, I'm not going to starch anybody. I'm not anymore. I'm not going to lead with my head. He just became a significantly less violent player.
Yeah, he was a hitter.
Yeah, he was a hitter.
He just fell off.
He was a first-round draft choice. He was a hitter who then stopped hitting after he got the concussions. But what do you think of Justin Reed or Javon Holland? Like if the Niners do that, like, hey, we're going to sign one or two free agents, what do you think of one of them being a safety?
I love it. You and I discussed it, and you discussed Holland, and right off the top before anybody even said anything, and you were all over it and talked about him from the Bay Area. He went to Oregon. He was a really good player. He didn't have a lot of numbers last year in Miami, but that's misleading. Mustafa's going to start for Hufanga. Hufanga's gone. And Jair Brown just makes too many mistakes on the back end, and you have a young secondary. And I like Renardo Green on one side. Obviously, Lenore's going to be one guy on the other side, and it's going to be Mustafa at strong safety. You need a third corner, which might be DJ Reed, our buddy that we interviewed when he was a Niner draft pick, and he thought he was Deion Sanders. But of course,
he was so cocky. He was
so funny. But, he played with Robert Saleh, so maybe that's something that there's going to be a tie, and that wouldn't be bad. But you got to – I really think you need a veteran safety, a veteran-free safety that you can trust in the deep zone, because right now, Jair Brown, I like the kid, and he's real mature. We had him on from training camp last year, a really bright kid. But you said this right when he was drafted, Krug. I remember you saying it. He runs like a he runs in the high 4.6s.
Like 4.65 or something.
Yeah, and if he has a mistake going one way, the wrong way, then he's in a lot of trouble, and that's happened to him. And that's just a really young secondary, and I think that an adult in the room at safety would be a big deal. Now, guys like Justin Simmons waited a long time, the former Bronco, and played not real well in Atlanta last year, so I think he might be passed. But Holland is a guy, I think he's 25, right? You looked it up. I think he's 25.
Yeah, he's young.
He's from the Bay. He wants to be here. He's young. He's a perfect fit in that secondary, and that's something that they're missing, an adult in the room in the secondary. And I think that is something that is vastly underrated as everybody, and I get it, everybody's looking at the interior of the line. Everybody's looking at, edge rushers, offensive linemen. I get it. Those are major needs. Maybe even somebody until Ayuk can get things going. They have some needs on this team. But I think that free safety, a true free safety, is a major need for this team right now. And a safety that maybe, even though he's 25 in Holland's case, has a few years under his belt to give them a little bit of a veteran presence in that secondary that is very young.
Well, you remember Tom Gamble?
Sure.
Tom Gamble, he used to work in the Niner front office. And the Harbaugh years. I remember having a good conversation with Tommy one time about free agency and the dynamic in the room. And he's like, you got to think more about the dynamic in the room in free agency, because if you go paying a bunch of mediocre guys more money than you're paying your own guys, you can look up and just have a room full of nightmares, that are just everybody's pissed, everybody's unhappy, you've killed your culture. He's like, that's why it's better to go get a great guy in free agency. So that's what the Niners, I think, tried to do with Mooney and with Hargrave. Is like, hey, we'll go get a great player. We'll bring him into the room. Nobody will bitch because, they're not as great as this guy. And it works if you can get a great player, because I do think, if you see Javon Holland making a boatload of cash, if he's better than you, then you got nothing to say. But if you're better than him, you're going to have a lot to say. And I just think it's important that's what I love about John Lynch. He signs free agents as a guy who was once a free agent and was in the locker room. He understands the dynamics of players. And that's a big part of chemistry in football. You can't pay a bunch of guys who haven't done anything for you all this guaranteed money while you're telling your other guys, no. You can't have that kind of room. So a guy like Holland is great, and he would be their best safety, and I think he would be really nice next to Malik Mustafa. All right, evaluate this one today from Lynch.
Yeah.
This is a quote about Kyle Juszczyk. You tell me if this is
Yeah,
if this
thought
sounds
about
like
you.
he's.
I thought about you the whole time, by the way, this whole thing.
Is
You're the
this a
first
quote
person
that
came
says
to mind.
Juice is staying, or is this a quote that says Juice is bailing? All right, here's the quote. 49er Web Zone, thank you. I picked this off your website.
Look at you giving credit. You're the man.
Bibliography.
People don't do
Bibliography.
that.
I show my work. I went to Saying Nations. Go Cats, get them Cats, go get them Cats. All right, Juice is a great player, and he's been really valuable to us. So he's part of us. We'll see. We're thinking of a lot of things right now. We're trying to make everything work, and some tighter constraints than we've had in the past. To me, I think that sounds like we love Juice and we're cutting Juice, and he's a cap casualty. And that's what I got
on your face right now.
That's what well, here's my thing. It's not personal. Juice has treated me very well.
Not personal.
Very well.
He's a great guy.
He's a great dude. He's been a total pro. I love talking to the guy. I really do. I'm not being a smartass, even though I have been known to be a smartass. But I'm not being a smartass here. I actually really like Juice. But once again, we're back in real land. Okay? You're awful running the ball on the goal line. You're awful running the ball in short yardage. The Niners have a Pro Bowl fullback and a center in Brendel who was a Pro Bowl alternate not that long ago, and Kyle Shanahan doesn't even try to run the ball inside the 5. He's like, screw that. Let's just pass it. We can't do that. So if you can't, Philly can do it. Baltimore can do it. Kansas City can do it. All these, Buffalo can do it. All these teams can do it. And so if you ever want to actually contend for a Super Bowl, you better figure out a way to run the ball inside the 5-yard line or forget about it. Thanks for coming. And as much as I like Juice, if you got a Pro Bowl fullback and you're one of 5 teams in the NFL that has a fullback, you got to run the ball in the low red zone effectively, and you got to run the ball in short yardage, and they don't. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't gone through the film with a fine-tooth comb, but between Brendel, Banks, Pooney, Juice, and whoever's the running back, those are the only people. It's not your fault. Yeah. Pretty sure it's not John Lund's fault. Pretty sure it's not Greg Papa's fault. Pretty sure it's not my fault, but it's one of their fault. And I don't know whose, but Juice, he's 34. He makes some good cash. There's some other guys in this draft that play other positions, like a defensive lineman that could play fullback, an offensive lineman that could play fullback. I got Garendo. I think I'm going to move in a different direction from Juice. If I'm the Niners.
I think you can use. I think that this is the year too. I know there's a lot of needs here, but I think this is the year that they find a tight end because it's so deep. This draft, you and I've talked about it numerous times. They're going to find a tight end in this draft, and I'd like him to find a move tight end, and he can do the same thing that Juice does because Juice is not an outstanding blocker. What he does best, they don't even use him for. He's a decent blocker, not great. He's more of a move tight end type. And he catches the ball really well, but they never throw him the football no matter how wide open he is. So what's the point? I was just looking at this deal where you were talking. They restructured it. It voids next year. It's a $2 million cap hit if he's gone. You can't afford it. What John Lynch said, what we started here with was John Lynch said, we got to get younger. We got to get, cheaper. We got to get, Juice is 34. And he doesn't need to work anymore. He went to Harvard. Plus, his wife makes all those pretty jackets that Taylor Swift likes. So they're fine. And I'm with you, man. I love Juice, but it's show. It's not show friends. It's show business. The Niners aren't Al Davis. They're the Niners. They're more Bill Walsh than they are Al Davis. Juice, he gone. Like that's just how it is. John Lynch said today they got to get younger. He's 34. John Lynch said they got to get more athletic. John Lynch said, if he's going to abide by those things, you already restructured Juice once. You basically told him last year was the year. And I like him too, but they don't use him enough. They gave him the ball one time and they had all those injuries at the 2-yard line, which is stupid ass to do, and he fumbled it. So you say this all the time, and you and I have this conversation, and it's why I thought right when he talked about Kyle Juszczyk, I went, oh my God, I think if I go on with Kirk tonight, we're going to leave with this. And I could see that you'd have a giant smile on your face because he said without saying it, we love Juice, but he gone. Like we can't afford anymore. We can't give out thank you contracts anymore. Remember when the Giants, they gave Lincecum a thank you contract. They gave out thank you contracts to guys. Aubrey Huff got a thank you contract. Thanks for helping us win a World Series. He's done a lot of great things, and I love Juice. But he's got to go. I mean, the best thing he does right now is be George Kittle's friend. I mean, that's not a reason to spend this money on a fullback.
Here's the other thing. adjust, adapt. Look at the rest of the league. Who's the
Got to get a hammer.
Who's the all-pro fullback?
Oh, Ricard of the Ravens.
It was Ricard.
Yeah.
It was Ricard. He's a freaking offensive lineman.
Yeah, they got to get
yourself a hammer and start running the ball on the goal line.
And it's exactly what John said about getting cheaper, younger, and more athletic. If you get Kittle a backup, which you should do, they're going to extend Kittle this offseason. He proved what he was worth. He already had, but he was so good this season. He could have quit at any point. He never did. Had an amazing season in a 6-11 year. He showed what kind of a leader and player is. So he gets an extension. To back him up finally in this tight end deep draft, they're going to find one. But they're going to find one that can be Kittle, but also can be a move guy. So they're going to use a move tight end in the places that they would have used Juszczyk. And they're going to get this guy in like the 3rd or 4th round, and he's going to be half of what Juszczyk costs. Hey, Lynch, you just said that in the press conference. So some things you don't believe, like the minute he said at the end of the year press conference, we're not in the business of letting good players out the door. And I'm like, you're letting Deebo go. Stop it. Like we knew. And he, the things he said about Juice, some things you're telling the truth. Sometimes you're not. It's lying season 24/7, 365 in professional sports nowadays. Juice has got to go. And he basically said that in the nicest possible way. But go ahead. You can be giddy about it. There's nothing wrong with that just because he's a nice guy. I thought of you first today and was like, Krug is going to love this. And you're going to want you want the guy who's the guard. You want the North Carolina guard that's 5'11", 285 to be the fullback. I know you. See that smile? I know that's what you want. You want Juice out, and you want the North Carolina 5'11", 285-pound guard to be the fullback. I know you.
It's like, I love this guy, but every time I talk about him, I got to look him up because I always forget his freaking name.
He was like this hammer. He was at the Senior Bowl.
The one guy that I love the most.
He was like
here it is. His name's Willie Lampkin.
Yeah, that's
Willie Lampkin.
He was like
Willie freaking Lampkin
at the Senior Bowl, but he's 5'11", 285. Like nobody's gonna draft this guy, but I mean he might be the next Patrick Ricard, right?
I love me some Willie Lampkin.
I think Juice is gone. That's a long way to get to the fact that I think
let's hit a few more of these Lynch things. Okay, one, he said he expects. He talked to Robert Saleh and some other of their, people who know special teams around the league who are, who somehow share information with John and Kyle, gave them a good recommendation on Brant Boyer. So that's what John said today. He also said he was asked about Trent Williams' status. He said Trent's playing, he's ready and motivated. We can parse through that and say, well, was he not motivated? But I'm not. That's not who I am. Let's go on to the next one. CMC's, let's spend lots of time questioning the greatest offensive lineman in the sport's motivation. Come on, stop.
Dude, he looked at 6'11". He looked at the thing from 6'11" and went, I'm done. Like, hey, that's great. Kittle's playing and Warner's playing. I ain't playing. I'm almost 37.
Trent's too good. Trent's too good to play. Trent's like Steph.
Yeah,
Steph's too good to play in games that don't matter. Trent's too good to play in games that don't matter. If the games don't matter, Trent don't play.
That's fine.
CMC. He was asked about CMC's status. He says CMC's doing great, doing really well. I think he could be ready for part of the OTAs. Didn't say what part, but part of the OTAs. Then he was asked about Brian Griese's decision to quit coaching, called it a family decision by the Grieses. And I've talked to Brian Griese a few times about the time commitment. And the time commitment for NFL coaches is obscene. I mean, it really is. I mean, seriously, I feel like I work really hard these days, like really hard at my channel, right? And I'm filling in, doing the Niners Nightly hour on KMBR, and I'm trying to do everything I can possibly do. And I'm working hard, but not like these guys. These guys show up at 5 a.m., They go home at 9 p.m., and they do it every day. And it's like they take a couple weeks off in June before camp starts, and other than that, they're just grinding. They're just constantly grinding.
The thing, too. He's a great broadcaster. He's a great broadcaster. You think he'll go back? And because it's a great life.
He's a really good broadcaster.
He's so underrated as a broadcaster. In fact, when they made the Monday Night Football move and they put Steve Levy in there, and it was atrocious. And I think they put Louis Riddick in there. I think it was those three. And Brian Griese was awesome, but he got lumped into that whole thing because they were trying that trial thing with those guys, and it never worked. But Griese's great. So whether Griese goes back to do college, he's really good at that. helped, won a national championship with Michigan in 1998, was their starter. And remember, he replaced Elway. The guy's got a ton of money. He's lived in Denver a long time. He's got a lot of business interests there. He's got money. He's a great broadcaster. He doesn't have to grind his ass off and not see his family. So when he turned down the Jets for a head coaching job, that should have told us, for an opportunity, that should have told us everything, because he's a quarterback coach. They want to talk about being the head coach. So, and he said no. Like, it wasn't like he was the OC and he was calling plays, and he was the quarterback coach and said no thanks to a head coaching interview. So that probably should have told you right there that the guy was probably thinking of it. But like you said, a lot of people work hard. People don't work hard like that. When you can turn around and become a broadcaster, which isn't easy. You're sitting there and you're busting over the cards and everything like that. But it's once a week. You don't have to. You're not killing yourself like that. And so he's going to go back. He's a great broadcaster. And that's what he's going to do. He tried his hand at coaching and he was good at it, but he's, why bust your ass if you don't have to?
When I first got a job in pro football in 1994, as the quality is basically the same job that John Lynch just gave his son Jake.
Oh boy.
Which was defensive quality control. Defensive quality control. And I'm first of all, I'm not banging on John at all for giving Jake this opportunity. This is the bottom. Yeah. I know, because this is where I started. And that is the bottom. To be the defensive quality control coach is like the lowest guy on the pole. But I remember I've told the coach, was the defense coordinator I worked for, John, was like, Larry, let me ask you, are you a hard worker, boy? And I said, yeah, I am a hard worker. That's so funny you asked me that, coach. I'm a very hard worker. He's like, good. So you make your own hours and we'll see how it goes. And I'm like, all right. So then I'm getting to the facility at like 6 a.m., John. And I'm like staying there. I'm working till like 7, 8 o'clock. So that's like 14-hour days. So I'm like, you know what? At the end of the week, I said, Coach, tell me what you think. I've been working for you for a week. What do you think? He's like, I love you, boy. I love you. He's like, you're sharp as a tack, and you do all the things I need you to do. But let me just tell you something. And I go, yeah. And I'm like thinking he's going to say something nice. And he's like, you're fucking lazy. Oh. And I said, lazy? I'm showing up at 6 a.m. I'm going home at 8 p.m. I'm putting in 14-hour days. You're calling me lazy? He's like, you don't want it like I want it. And I'm like, all right, fine. What do you want to do? He goes, how about this, boy? I'll pick you up every morning on your front door and I'll drive you home. You'll save a bunch of gas money coming out here. And I'm like, all right. So we're done, and he's dropping me off at the house. Long day. And he goes, I'll pick you up tomorrow. You better be out here. Don't make me wait. And I'm like, all right. What time? He's like, 1:45. And so I go, okay. I start walking away from the car. And I turn around. I'm like, 1:45 to what? And he's like, 1:45. Oh. He picked me up at 4:45 every morning. And dropped me off after midnight, sometimes after 1 a.m.
No way.
Yes. And as I'm getting out of the car, he'd be like, I was living with like my fraternity buddies from college. These guys are like
partying.
They're getting ready to go out, Right. And it's like, I'm coming in. And he's like, God. And then like, and the coach would yell at me, you better not go out with those boys. He's like, because I'm coming at 4:45. I'm like, oh my God. It was hell on earth, dude. It was hell on earth. But it was an illustration. This was not sadistic behavior. This is how pro football works. This is how much these guys work. They work themselves to death. They sleep in the office.
I showed a picture of this the other day because Tolbert came on my show, and we told a story about Kyle Shanahan. And we did the first interview, he and I, when we were working together on KMBR, that Kyle did. So he does the press conference. And I don't know if you know of this picture. I can pull it up here and put it against my camera in a very non-professional way. But Kyle sits down with us. He's got a pressed black suit on, a striped black suit on. He's got jet black dark hair. He doesn't have he has no beard whatsoever. Everything's in place. He's got this beautiful watch, ring. He looks immaculate, right? First day on the job. Now look at Kyle. He ages worse than the president. He's all gray. His face is sagging. I mean, look, I'm throwing rocks at a glass house here. I look terrible. I understand that. But since he's become the coach of the Niners, he's aged worse than the president. Like, remember Obama? Obama went into office. and he had this jet black hair, beautiful man. He comes out, he just like he's been thrown in the dryer for 4 straight years every day. And that's what Kyle looks like, because he sleeps on a cot. He doesn't eat worth a damn, probably eats donuts. He's constantly going into the press conferences with like a quadruple venti, whatever he's got.
Have you ever heard him talk about his family?
Oh my God. No.
If you start, I guarantee you, ask him about his family. He's going to start talking about Friday night.
Show you a picture here.
He's like, yeah, Friday nights. Friday nights, we get together and we go out. We Friday nights. It's like, yeah. What about the rest of the week?
That's it.
No, dude, you're shoehorning your family into Friday nights, and it's not like Kyle. It's not. I'm not trying to say, Kyle.
No, but this
is the industry. This
Gruden.
Is the life.
Think about Gruden. Gruden was always up at 3:45. It was famous.
Joe Gibbs slept in his office for supposedly 3-4 years.
That's what these guys do. I mean, it's just I'm trying to look for this thing. I just had it up the other day too. I mean, Kyle looks amazing. Kyle looks like he's not even 30 years old in this picture, and now he looks like he's 60. I mean, it's only been like 7-8 years. I mean, it's just like you said. That's what they do. They eat, drink, sleep. That's why one of the questions I might ask John Lynch today at the press conference is, so why is Kyle not here? I watched Pete Carroll's press conference. Brad of the Raiders. He's 73 years old, still doing this stuff, and he acts like he's 25. And he just said he went on this diatribe when asked this very question of why he's here, about how important it is to not only talk to the players as much as he possibly can, but be on the same page with his new GM, with his team, with everybody. When they get into a room with somebody and they do a meeting and they look at each other and they say, okay, did everybody feel that same thing? Like, that guy was a complete dope. Okay, we're on the same page. Or that guy was incredible. We're on the same page. like, it's not, you get the 30 visits. I get it. I don't know if Kyle this time of year has a Cabo vacation planned or whatever, but for, as much as Kyle works and sleeps and drinks and eats football, he doesn't go to the combine, which I think is just the weirdest thing ever.
Okay. I'm okay with that. Okay. Here's why.
You are? Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Here's why. One, it's all on TV. And when I say it's on TV, every aspect of the combine is filmed, and the head coaches get all of it. So he literally can sit and watch every interview. He can watch the guy walk into the room. He can watch everything. They have the kids sit right in the same spot. The questions. He can watch it all. He can watch every drill, everything. The other reason it doesn't bother me is Kyle Shanahan is a bad liar. I think he's a self-admitted
really
bad liar. He's a bad liar. And he's more likely to give stuff away than he is to glean stuff. I really believe that. And I'm not saying that as a rip on Kyle. I like Kyle. Kyle knows that. I'm a fan of Kyle. I'm more of a fan of Kyle than probably most people, because I really do believe he's a very good coach. But he's a terrible liar. He's a terrible liar.
Let me just it's like I want to move this, but what's funny? That very interview that Tommy and I did, we got off the air with him, and Tom later told me that he had lost a bet in the Super Bowl, so he was kind of pissed at Shanahan. So that we get done with this interview, whatever. Dog and Pony show. Is
this the Falcons after the one he had him on?
This is
after I can remember that interview.
This is Kyle's first day on the job, so he comes.
Tommy was kind of grilling him too. Tommy was kind of grilling him.
Yeah, he was grilling him. Then after we get off the air, and I've told this story.
It was 28-3. They blew the 28-3 lead.
So that's what he said to him. He bet on the Falcons, and so he asks Kyle. Doesn't tell him that at the time, but asks Kyle. Literally the second we get off the air. He says to Kyle, why didn't you run it? And he says, what about the Devontae Freeman missed block on Dante Hightower? And he starts into this whole thing. And Kyle kind of looks around for a minute, says, the mics are off, right? And we said, yeah, the mics are off. And he details, and you know how it is. The PR guy for the Giants, or excuse me, for the Niners is sitting there going, hello, we got to go. Like, you just got hired. Let's go, coach. And he sits there and intricately tells us for like the next, KNBR breaks where they're like a half hour long. So like sitting there, and it's like he's telling us like what happened and how it happened and everything like that. It was amazing.
He's walking you through his entire thought process.
Right, but he said the same thing,
which is really cool.
He told us he's not a very good liar. So if you ask him something, he's going to say it, and that's why him and John yin and yang so well. Because as we saw today, John is Mr. Positive, and Kyle is the cranky guy with the beard with the hat down low, drinking the coffee, going, if you ask me something, I'm going to tell you. And if you don't like the answer, I'm sorry. That's just how he is. But, he's a funny guy that way, because they do yin and yang, because he's not going to blow smoke up your ass. And if he tries to, you're going to know. And he said that from day one. He has said that on the air, off the air, he's not a very good liar. He knows it.
Tolbert, is this actual T? Is this actual
sure.
T? Tommy
he was
T?
not what? He was not what? He didn't lose a bet? He did lose a bet.
Maybe maybe he says I was not grilling him, maybe? Because I said he was grilling him.
I mean, afterwards, it wasn't a grill session. It wasn't a grill session because Kyle offered it up. Kyle just started offering it up.
If I remember this correctly, this was kind of the beginning of the relationship, right? This was Kyle's first interview with you guys.
Yeah, with anybody in the Bay Area, because he went straight from the podium to us.
This is the beginning of the relationship, and yet
the only thing I remember about the interview was afterwards.
It was cordial, but it was, hey man, you blew a 28-3 lead. Let's go through. Let's go through some of this with a fine-tooth comb. But I'll say this: I mean, I felt like Kyle. I don't know. How'd you feel about it? Because I kind of felt like Kyle gave you and Tommy solid. As solid of answers as he could. Now, granted, they blew the 28-3 lead.
Yeah, as much as I remember it, I don't know how much we did on the Falcons. We did a little bit, but it was afterwards. And I mean, literally, when we turned the mics off, Tommy just asked him, as only Tom can, like, what exactly happened here? And Kyle opened up like right away, and I was like, wow, I've never had a coach do this. And he made sure, I just remember it, where he said, we're off the air, right? Kind of looked around a little bit, said, we're off the air, right? And then he proceeded to just say, basically, Devontae Freeman blew that block. If he doesn't blow the block, Julio Jones is running in the left sideline. It's wide open. They score the touchdown. And they win the Super Bowl. And Tom still was like, but if you run the ball, it was hilarious. And they have a great relationship to this day. They had great interviews. You sat right there.
Oh yeah,
I sat right there. I mean, I just tried to stay out of the way because they had a good, they had a good vibe going. So, anyway.
But I mean that was one of the stories today. The other one, Deebo. Let's hit Deebo.
Yeah.
Lynch said, "Hey, he goes, we're at least allowing him to look for a new NFL home." And then when he was asked about, the market, he said there's been a lot of interest around the league. And then he went on to say, "Hey, we're on good terms with Deebo. We're going to honor his trade request." The one part about that's disingenuous, that is a part of this story, is that the 49ers want to move him. It's not like, he wants out, and this is all so sad.
Yeah, right.
We're gonna grant his. You want to move
the wish of someone you want to keep, right?
It's like we're gonna, and he's painting it as we have a great relationship with him, and they do have. I'm sure they do have a good relationship with him, but. What do you make of the Deebo stuff? Because, yesterday it came out in Indy that the Texans may have some interest in Deebo. Today, people ran right to D'Amico Ryans and said, D'Amico, what's the deal? And D'Amico's like, hey man, I like good football players, and Deebo's a good football player. So he didn't run from it at all. If anything, he kind of threw gas on the fire that Houston may have some interest. Doesn't mean Houston's going to be willing to trade anything. This is a weird one, John, because, John Lynch said in December, we're not in the business of giving away good football players. Now, was that a bluff, 100% bluff?
Yeah, 100%.
Because today, if it was 100% bluff, it seemed like he doubled down on it today by saying how do you release a guy? How do you release a guy in 10 days after you just quoted and told the fan base that there's a lot of interest?
That's leverage. I mean, you're not going to
leverage for what?
Well, he just doesn't want to lose value on his player and say we have to trade him, because if you're in one side, he said, well, we're going to honor the request, which then he loses the leverage. The difference, though, and why they might be able to get something for him, because again, I heard the 49ers beat guys say that they're going to release him. They looked at the numbers. I think Lombardi, a lot of people said, they're going to release him. They're not going to release him, and the reason why is the market. If this market, if Ayuk's situation was now instead of last year, Ayuk would have been traded, and they would have gotten a first-round pick and maybe a first and a third. If you look across the league at how many teams all of a sudden need receivers, now there's the obvious New England, Pittsburgh, teams like that who never got it done, but Cleveland needs one. The Bengals are going to lose T. Higgins. They need one. Like, go across the board. And the thing is, here's the difference. Ayuk was a number one, or saw himself as a number one, and on the Niners he is, but Deebo's a number two. And everybody knew that Deebo wasn't in good shape. I mean, Kawakami said that, but all you had to do was look at a side angle of him in the A.J. Brown's jersey in New Orleans to know that, like, the dude was eating everything. Po' boys, jambalaya. I mean, you name it. He was eating it. he wasn't in very good shape. So he's a number 2 receiver, and a lot of people want, especially the younger teams, want what he can provide if he's in good shape, which is he sets a tone. And so while he's not a great fit, as we talked about before, for the 49ers, because he's not an intricate route runner that's in the right place at the right time, which is what Brock Purdy needs in this offense. So he's not a great fit anymore for this team. But if he is in shape as a number 2 wide receiver, I mean, think about it. The Rams now need one. The Raiders now need one. I mean, you can go down. The Chargers are dying for a receiver. The Jets, the Giants. I mean, go on down the line. It's not a great receiver draft like it was last year when you had Marvin Harrison, you had Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas was awesome in Jacksonville. You don't have the high-end guy outside of McMillan, the kid out of Arizona. So now there's a leverage ploy of Deebo Samuel, and there's teams who are looking at him. And the only drawback probably is he makes $15.2 million as far as the cap hit is concerned. I think he'll renegotiate that deal to get into the right situation. But you mentioned Houston. Adam Peters, who was on the Niners, obviously was the right-hand man of John Lynch when they drafted him in Washington next to Terry McLaurin. They need a second receiver. So there's a boatload. Dallas needs any help for CeeDee Lamb. Go on down the line. You know, a lot of teams, Tennessee has no receivers. You know, I'm just doing this off the top of my head. The only team, you know, Detroit really doesn't need one. Philly, his guy, A.J. Brown, really doesn't need one. Seattle's going to let Lockett go. I'm not saying they're going to trade him to Seattle.
Supposedly the Raiders. Supposedly the Raiders are going to
the Raiders. Like there's a lot of teams need receivers. So the whole point of it is that there's leverage in this game that there wasn't a year ago for Ayuk. Not as many teams were in the market for receivers. So Deebo, I don't think is going to get released. I think that there's going to be an opportunity to get something out of him. Now, Devontae Adams went from the Raiders to the Jets for a 3rd rounder. He's not as good as Devontae Adams, even though Adams is slipping a little bit as he gets older. But I mean, I could see a conditional 5 that could turn into a 3 or a 4, depending on how well Deebo plays. So I think he's going to get traded. I think they're honoring it. You hit it right on the head. They're not honoring it because they're being nice guys. They're honoring it because he doesn't fit on the team anymore. They don't want to be seen as jerks, and they're going to try to move the guy. But if Bosa did the same thing and went, hey, you know, I want to trade, they wouldn't honor the trade. They'd say, dude, we're not trading you. Good luck. Best of luck. We might bring your brother in. You're not getting traded. We might bring in your brother and have a Bosa sandwich at the quarterback. Deebo's getting traded because he doesn't fit, and his contract is too big for what they want to pay at the position. They don't want to pay Ayuk and Deebo money. Jennings is only good for 1 more year. It's a reason why they drafted Pearsall. The writing's been on the wall for Deebo for a long time. People just weren't looking at it.
Okay. And then the other talk today, you know, Lynch said they have had contract talks with George Kittle. So it sounds like a Kittle deal is going to get done. It sounds like a Purdy deal is going to get done. It sounds like Trent Williams is coming back. It sounds like Juice is not coming back. It didn't sound particularly good about Drake Jackson either. I don't know if you saw what he said about Drake Jackson, but
he's
basically Drake Jackson is just having a hard time getting healthy. I mean, I really like Drake Jackson. I root for Drake Jackson. He's one of the nicest guys on the team, but you know, it's now or never. It's do or die. It's got to happen this summer for Drake Jackson. So, I mean, what
did you make of Greenlaw and Hufanga? Because they were grouped together because that was the question. What did you think of his response to Hufanga and Dre?
I didn't hear what he said about Hufanga, but I saw that he said about Dre that we're trying to get something done before free agency begins. It sounds like Lynch wants to avoid any kind of bidding, and it's like, hey, this is what we're offering. And do you want to be here? Let's decide that before free agency, because we can't compete with any big money long-term offer. And I don't know if he's going to get one. And then the question is, it's up to his agent to figure out what he wants. Yeah. I've heard Dallas may want him, the Rams, any number of teams could want Dre Greenlaw. I mean, he's an amazing guy.
If Seattle doesn't get a deal done with Ernest Jones, I've heard that they would be in the market.
Yeah, I mean, go re-sign Greenlaw. Why? Because he's a culture player, and you need to draft a couple of young linebackers. And who's better to pass that along to them than Greenlaw? And I think you could probably get him for maybe 1 year, $6 million, maybe 2 years, $14 million, something like that. I think I think it's doable. John said today that that contract talks have been going on with Dre. And the hope is that a deal can be struck before free agency starts. However, Greenlaw may test the market first, according to Nick Wagner.
Yeah, I've
So
heard this. I've heard that he wants to look at the market because he feels like he's worth more than that. And you've pointed this out on numerous occasions. He played 34 snaps. That doesn't scream multi-year deal. That screams 1 year make good. You're coming off the
right.
Achilles, which is the worst injury in sports right now, the Achilles. And I just this is the other thing that screams. That's why I wanted to lead with that whole John Lynch thing where he said we're going to get younger, we got to get cheaper, we got to get younger, we got to get more athletic, those kind of things, and they want to transition to that. Dre Greenlaw is kind of the poster child for that. It's not that Dre Greenlaw's old, he's not, but he's coming off a major injury, and they're not going to be in the business of giving him a multi-year deal. And here's the other thing, like I keep talking about Sherwood, the kid on the Jets. Somehow, why is Kansas City letting Nick Bolton go? What's going on there? When he's their Fred Warner. Nick Bolton is really good, and the Niners aren't going to be able to afford him because the thing is, we all get excited.
Some people have suggested that they might
Nick
go
Bolton.
after him.
And I don't think they can afford him is the only thing. But I mean, Sherwood of the Jets, Nick Bolton. There's a lot of good players out there, but it only takes one team to give Dre Greenlaw a multi-year deal. Hufunga's gone because Mustafa can play that position. He's looking at Xavier McKinney's 4-69 they got from the Packers, so he's not coming back. Dre Greenlaw, that it just in the way that John Lynch, who's everly optimistic, talks about it, I don't think something's going to get done there. I think that Dre wants a lot of money. Wasn't it you? I thought it was you who took the video in the locker room last year. It was around Christmas time, and somebody asked Dre Greenlaw, and he was hurt at the time. Hey, what do you want for Christmas, Dre? And he turned to him and made the money sign, and he goes, money, because he knew he was going to be a free agent.
Right.
And again, maybe that means nothing. He's just having a little bit of fun, but he's earned it. And like you said, for the moment he was not hurt in those 34 plays and Hufanga was back too, they have that it factor on defense and the energy. And I love Dre. I really do. But it's kind of the point where a guy's coming off an Achilles injury. A kid like Sherwood played for solid with the Jets. He's 25, super fast. Now he's undersized. He's like 224. I mean, he's not big. But it's one of those things where you got to make some tough decisions here to what direction you want your organization to go. Because, Hufanga gets hurt a lot. Dre got hurt a lot last year. The Niners don't like paying hurt guys. Nobody does, but they really don't. And their cap can't take that kind of a chance. So if Dre's willing to play ball on a 1-year deal, he can be a 49er, and that's a big deal. But if he wants multiple years, I think that's a mistake that the 49ers can't afford to make. And they have some options. And I'll tell you this, if he and Bolton are playing for about the same amount of money, I'll take Nick Bolton next to Fred Warner. I don't think the Niners can afford that because people, for everything that everybody wrote last week of, hooray, the cap is going up. That's great for the Niners. That's great for everybody. Everybody in the league. So what that means is these guys, we're desensitized to money. But I'll give you a great example because you and I have talked about this guy a million times. I'd love to have Drew Dahlman as a center for the Niners. Went to Stanford. His dad played there. You and I interviewed his dad with Derek Deason when all his linemen came in, Scott Gregg.
Yep.
But the thing is that Drew Dahlman is the perfect example of a guy with now the league flush with money and the cap going up another $25 million that we're going to look at Drew Dahlman's deal and go, oh, my God, Drew Dahlman got that? He's only 26 years old. Best football's probably in front of him. I love the guy, and I was hoping that maybe he would be – like they'd get two guys, like you said, one guy defensively, one guy offensively, and kind of those couple guys, and maybe DJ Jones or something too. But I bet Dahlman's number is going to be ridiculous because the league is flush with money now. So as great as it is that the Niners and their money is going up and their cap is going up, they've got to give a lot of it to Kittle, like you said, to Purdy. It's kind of earmarked. And so to me, it's great. But those guys I thought they may be able to get in free agency, those kind of fringy guys that might slip through the cracks, Dahlman's going to get a lot of money. And so I'm depressed by that very fact because I would have loved he was like my free agent number one because Brenda was on his ass so much last year and they couldn't even run the ball. He would have been great. But I think he's going to get paid a ton of money.
Hendrick says Zach Bond would be a better fit. Do you know that the Niners are like he's third? The Niners are the third choice in Vegas to sign Zach Bond. It's like Eagles, Patriots, and Niners. That would be amazing.
He just was all pro. He won a Super Bowl at the Eagles. The Eagles are not going to let him leave the building. Like the Eagles fans are going to be at the airport saying, "You can't go on this flight." Like they're going to be pissed. They're going to pay him a bunch of money. Yeah. Philly's got to pay him, don't they? I mean, that was a great find. They got to pay him. I can't imagine.
We got this one from Jeff. Jeff says exactly there. Draft some young linebackers to have behind Greenlaw. Demetrius Knight from Southern South Carolina.
Come on,
is
crew.
incredible.
Tell us about some linebackers.
So let me tell you about this kid. Let me tell you about Demetrius Knight. He is a descendant.
This is my favorite.
He's a descendant of Gladys Knight
Is
from
he
Gladys
really?
Knight in the Pips.
Wow. Are you
Now,
serious?
is that a deep pull?
Dude, that is sweet.
That's a pretty deep pull.
Sweet. What
Demetrius Knight. So I'm watching Kyle Kennard about 3 weeks ago. Right? Kyle Kennard is the defensive end who plays for South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
He was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, he was the best defensive player in the conference this year. He had like 12 sacks. And I'm watching this guy, and I'm like, hey, he looks pretty good. I mean, he looks all right. He's getting to the quarterback. He's doing it out of a 2-point stance. And the more I watch him, the more I keep noticing that there's this other guy who just keeps flying on the screen. I mean, just moving so much faster than everybody else. It's so noticeable. And it's this guy, Demetrius Knight Jr., who's a Georgia kid who started at Charlotte, transferred to South Carolina as a grad student. He's a team captain now at South Carolina. At South Carolina, when they make you the team captain, they give you like a painting in their facility that never leaves. Like they have pictures or paintings of like the team captains all throughout their facility, which is pretty freaking amazing and cool.
It is pretty cool.
This Demetrius Knight is like going to be remembered in South Carolina lore. But this guy is all academic honor roll. Okay. He was the most outstanding senior on the team. He was the captain of the team. He's a 6-year linebacker, 4 years at Georgia Tech, 1 year at Charlotte, and then finished up at South Carolina. He absolutely flies. Absolutely flies. He just makes play after play after play after play. He's incredible. The guy's already got a degree in literature, media, and communication from G-Tech. His cousin is D'Angelo Hall, who was an All-American defensive back at Vatech.
Talked a lot of
pick
trash.
overall years ago. 3-time Pro Bowler, 14-year career. He's a distant cousin of Gladys Knight and Aretha Franklin.
Come on.
I swear.
Seriously?
Yeah.
R-E-S-B-C-T. Very good.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So anyway, Demetrius Knight, probably going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick. He's a linebacker. It's a great linebacker draft, especially after
I can't wait for the draft show,
3.
Crew. You're going to tear it up.
This guy's
It's
amazing. Just watch him for like a minute, and you'd be like, "Oh, wow, this guy flies around."
I love, dude. Your track record with linebackers is good, by the way.
Oh yeah, I got the linebacker.
nailed
I got the linebackers down. I could go all day on the linebackers, but I do want to share one little bit of news today because some things. There's a lot of talk, right? There's NFL rumors, there's Niner rumors, there's a million people that heard a million things, and what does it all amount to? Not a whole lot, right? Not a whole lot. But I have a scouting friend named Tony Pauline, and this guy is legit. He's got legit sources. He's a legit scout. He goes to Mobile. He goes to the Combine in Indy. He's been on the scouting trail for decades. Really sharp guy, and I've had him on many times. Anyway, he now works for a company called Sports Cata. Last year, about 3-4 weeks before the draft, out of nowhere, he's like, in his whispers column, he's like, yeah, one of the things I heard is that the 49ers are going to draft Isaac Guerendo in the 4th round. Okay? Very specific, right? They're going to draft Isaac Guerendo in the 4th round, the 49ers. Well, he said the 3rd round. They drafted him in the 4th round. Okay, so they didn't take him in the 3rd round. He was there in the 4th round. They took him. So this guy is super, super keyed in. He came out with a report today that the 49ers really like UCLA defensive end Oluwafemi Oladejo, who just was coached. Yeah, who's just coached by KJ Wright in Mobile. He had David Walker. He had all those edge rushers. He basically coached the edge rushers in Mobile, and he was coaching up Oluwafemi Oladejo all week long. I also did an interview like maybe 3 months ago with Guy Haberman. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hey, Guy. And Guy is one of my buddies. And I know you love Guy Haberman. Oh, he's the best. To me, he's really good play-by-play guy, too. Just he's not yet quite discovered. He's going to have a great career. But I'm a big Guy Haberman fan. and guy's really sharp, and we've been friends for a long time. And so I asked him, I said, hey, Guy, you've been doing all these college football games. I used to ask Dave Fleming this too whenever I would run into Fleming. These are the greatest guys to ask because they don't care.
They do all
They're
the games.
never wagering on it. They have no dog in the fight, but they're incredibly prepped with all this info, and they've been talking and calling these games all year, so they know who's good. I'm like, give me a couple guys that you've seen this year that you think are really, really good. And literally the first name he said was Oluwafemi Oladejo, who was an inside backer at Cal, transferred to UCLA, was an inside backer at UCLA. Then they came up with this Carson Schlesinger kid who's just monster. And so they moved Oladejo to the defensive end spot, and he blew up this year. And he went to the combine, or he went to the Senior Bowl, and he was one of the most impressive guys all week. And you could tell when they were getting ready to take the field for the game that this guy was like the guy in the locker room, the tone setter. He was like getting everybody fired up. He is a spectacular personality in addition to being a spectacular player, and about 6'4", 260, and great pass rusher. Anyway, I'm just saying, Tony Pauline, for him to say the Niners really are high on Olufemi Oladejo just tells me that that's legit. That is legit. And if there's one guy that I would say watch for the Niners to wind up with, I would say it's this kid. Now, I don't know what round he's going to go in, because he keeps going. I mean, Kuiper had him in the first round. So if he's going in the first round, he's probably not coming to the Niners. But if he goes in the round, more of the day 2, day 3, like he's been projected, remember that name. You heard it here first. Tony Pauline says Niners want Oluwafemi badly.
By the way, I got to ask you this question because this is like Christmas Eve to you. Tomorrow's the combine. The combine starts tomorrow. Like, how are you gonna? Because you're the king. You do all these different shows and all this kind of stuff, and I know where you are. I know where your studio is and everything. Like, how are you gonna do shows, but yet stay focused on the show? Because like when I used to do the show with Papa, if there was a sporting event, we went 10 to 2, so a lot of times, unless it was day baseball, but if it was the Giants, like we weren't even on the air. But if there was some sort of sporting event that he wanted to watch, he would just tell me straight up to start the show. Look, let's say the show started at 12, or excuse me, the sporting event started like 12:10, and we started the show at 10 a.m. He's like, you got me for 2 hours and 10 minutes. He goes, at 12:10, I'm out. And he wasn't lying, because I would be talking to him, and you could see, especially when they started to put cameras in the studio, he would just be doing this, just staring at the TV, and I'd be like talking to him. And he would do his best to split his attention 50-50, but he had massive ADD, so he'd be watching. And a guy like that would want to start doing play-by-play. So a lot of times we're doing the talk show. I'm talking about something. We're doing 2 different talk shows. He's doing play-by-play of some event he's watching on the TV that nobody else can see. But I know you're a true professional, and maybe you'll DVR the whole thing, because that's really what's great about the draft. Yeah. You DVR everything. But I know you're going to intricately go through this stuff. So how is it that the combine is going to start in the next couple of days, and you're going to do all the shows that you normally do? How are you going to focus? I need to.
Well, that's the thing. Here's the one thing. I do like I just record it, right? I record the whole thing, and then I'm the sad MFer that's like, it's 1:30 in the morning, and my wife comes downstairs and, are you still watching this? Yes, I am. And she doesn't even ask. Now she doesn't even ask. She just looks at me in disgust. But yeah, I do watch it a lot. But I will say this: you can make a lot of mistakes here if you don't know who the good players are, and then you just start watching the combine. You're like, oh, they need to get this guy, and it's like, no, that guy can't play dead. Well, he's just fast.
Here's where they screw up. Really, this is really where they screw up. Is that they watch the film, they know who can play, and then what they do is, these guys all have the answers to the test. So they go to Florida, they go to California, they go to Arizona, they get the minute the season's over. Who cares about whether they finish, any of that kind of stuff? They go straight to some kind of a facility where they work out like madmen, and it's got to be about the 40-yard dash and the
Exos
shuttle and the
or
bench
whatever in
and
Scottsdale.
all that stuff. Yeah, and they do this for months at a time. So they give them the answers to the test. You know what they should really do at the combine? They shouldn't tell them what they're going to do. You might run the 40, you might not. You might do this one, you might not. Like you don't know, and we're going to have new stuff, and you don't know, because now they know. And so they just train for this stuff, and they're absolute experts at it. They're vertical, all that's all they do. How do you get out of the blocks and run a 40? So these guys know all the answers to the test. So they blow the thing out of the freaking water. Every one of them's Mike Mamula. And so what happens is that they just crush it. And then these scouts go, oh my God. And you can't help it. It's human nature. So if a guy runs, Xavier Worthy, a 4.21, then everybody's freaking out and they can't help it. And then everybody talks about it. Then these insider guys who do the mocks do a post combine mock that's all jumbled from the other mock that they did, just because they haven't caught a pass, they haven't thrown a pass, they haven't tackled anybody, nothing. You already knew what everybody could do. So they just fooled everybody because they practiced for it and knew the answers to the test for 3 or 4 months. And then they become great at these skills, in which, to be honest, a lot of them have nothing to do with playing. They're just, are you an athlete?
Well, so not only that. Not only that, John.
All these guys are productive. And they stop looking at the tape.
Not only that. You'll have guys who hey, man, this guy played at 235 and he weighed 218. Right. And now he's faster. Yeah, well, he's 218, but he doesn't play at 218.
Right. That's what
So who cares if he runs this fast at this speed, at this size? It's not his playing size.
And so they always say this too. They say, look, it's just a part of the process, and it should be just a part of the process. But what starts to happen here is they look less at the tape. They look more at the combine. And then here's the thing, and this is why the 49ers screwed up with Trey Lance. They go to his pro day. Jordan Palmer does it with all these guys, and they map out what they're going to do, who they're going to throw to. These dumbass coaches are running at these quarterbacks with a broom. Give me a break. They scramble to the right, throw a 70-yarder down the sideline, which Christian Watson catches, which he and Trey Lance have done a million times together. And John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are sitting there going, oh, my God, this is amazing. And they didn't look back at the fact that he played 7-on-7 high school football, played 25 games, won the last year because of the pandemic, has virtually no experience, was this great athlete against inferior competition. They draft the guy based on brooms and throwing a 70-yarder on a dime to Christian Watson, who he's been working with for, the last 3 months every single day. Watch the film. Stop looking. For you and I, It's a lot of fun. And my wife's with your wife. I'll sit there and watch this stuff, and I'll try to explain to her, if this guy runs a sub 4.3 40 instead of the 4.5, he's going to make $2 million. And she'll go, I don't care. You're a nerd. And then she'll just walk out of the room. But we love this stuff, but it's so overvalued. I love talking about it, but it's so overvalued. And then they vault guys up based on this kind of stuff. And I'm going, and then the other thing, don't get me started. How come the best guys don't work out? If you're the best, Shedeur Sanders, throw the ball. What's the big deal? If I'm going to invest millions, then you got to play, man. You got to show me what you got if you're supposed to be the best. I hate that.
And it's what happens is they force all the scouts to get on all these private
They got to go to their place,
fly around the country, and then it's
their way to do it. So and now we're on your field, and you're only going to do what you want to do. And you're not going to work out. I understand Abdul Carter's awesome. He could go number one, but he said, I think it was today or yesterday. I think he said it today at the combine. I'm the best player in the draft. It's not even close, this, that, and the other. Dude, if you're the best player in the draft, work out. I'll tell you, I like work out. Let's see it.
I like what Quinn Ewers is doing. Quinn Ewers is you know what? I'm going to take advantage of the fact that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart or whatever are not going to throw, and I'm going to throw. I'm a 5-star high school prospect from Southlake, Texas, and I got a hose and I can throw the hell out of it. And I'm going to go to Indy, and those guys are going to sit it out, and I'm going to jump them in the line. And you know what? It can happen. We saw Zach Wilson, make a lot of money with that roll left, throw right bomb that he dropped in the bucket. He's been living off that. Really, that's how he got picked second overall. So, yeah, to me, there's always few things to look for, but you gotta remember this. You either do know or don't know who the good players are. And if you don't know who the good players are, don't decide at the combine. And if you do know who the good players are, don't forget at the combine. Yeah, so and I guess that's really it.
Just, and you know this stuff because you did it, but why do they do that? Why is it that they watched all this film and they sent scouts all over the country and they watched them and they're gamers and they interviewed them and they know exactly, and then for some reason it's a guy that sees a hot blonde at the bar and he has a few drinks and he's all confident and hits on her. It's dude, stay in your lane. That's not.
Yeah, but okay, so if you know you got the right girl, I mean, this is a
Right.
terrible comparison, but we're doing girls, but whatever. But
So
you know,
you and me.
you think you got the right girl. She's the right girl. If you don't think you got
Don't
the right
overthink
girl, if you don't think you got the right girl, guess what you say when you talk to your buddies about it? Oh, dude, she was tall. She was this. She was blah. She was that. She was incredible. And that's what the scouts do. If they have the conviction the guy can play, then it's just like, hey, this guy's good. This guy can play. If they don't have the conviction, they're like, dude, he's a 4.3. He did 27 reps at 225. His 3-cone was 6.87.
You just hit why teams make a mistake, because you know what they do?
They're looking for verifiable data that they can. Everybody's nervous these days.
Right,
how many people want proof? Everybody wants proof of everything.
They're going to get fired, and they play CYA. They play cover your ass. And so they think to themselves, I'm going to take the guy that has all their measurables and the edge rusher that's 265, 265 by the book and runs a 4.48, and he's got everything. And therefore, when the owner or somebody comes to me and says, why'd you do that? You say, well, look at the guy. That's his fault, not my fault. That's why Brock gets picked 262, because you can't justify to your owner or your GM to take Brock higher because he has none of the measurables, but you tell your owner he's got the it. He's got the it, and he's got the brains, and they're going, I can't see that. He's not 6'5", 230. You can't draft him in the first round. That's why they get hurt. And that's why in the subsequent rounds, why teams kind of throw that away a little bit, and they start to go back to their board and go back to their tape, and they draft good players, and all of a sudden, oh my God, you did so much better. I just think, especially in the first round, teams get so enamored with height, weight, speed, like the old Al Davis thing, height, weight, speed, height, weight, speed, height, weight, speed. And they fall in love with these people like they're supermodels, and they draft them so that they can cover their ass and say, well, I drafted him. I mean, look at the guy. He looks like, he looks like Tarzan
I can tell you a great story that's absolutely true. My buddy, who I scouted with in the Canadian League, was scouting he worked on Joe Bugle's staff with the Raiders, right? And so he knew he had a bunch of things he had to do as far as film obligations, because he was doing a lot of film work for Al. And he was in their front office at the time, the Raider front office. And so he said to me, he's like, oh man, I got so much work to do. He's like, would you come over here, and watch film with me? I trust your opinion. I said, okay, I'll come over. So I'm watching film, and he's like, the old man loves Ricky Dudley. And I said, oh, he sucks.
The Ohio State tight end, yep.
My first
the Raiders took him.
I'm like, he absolutely sucks. He's like, that's good. Why do you think so? Why do you have a strong opinion about him? I go, dude, I watched the entire Ohio State-Michigan game. Balls ricocheted off that guy. He was horrible. He was easily the worst player on the field. He can't catch a cold. He's garbage. And he's like, old man loves him. He runs really fast, and he wants to draft him.
But he was 6'6", 255. It looked like an Adonis. Like, yeah, I remember the guy.
So now it's like late. It's really late. And we're at the Raiders facility in Alameda, and Al Davis comes in. Okay, it's late. I mean, it's like 11 o'clock at night. And my friend's like, hey, this is Larry Krueger, and we used to work together in the Canadian League and this and that. So I'm talking to him, and he's like, what are you watching? And I go, I'm watching Ricky Dudley. And he's like, he's an amazing prospect. He starts talking about, and I'm like, well,
10.
I go, well, I guess I don't really share that belief. He's like,
you said that
don't. Yes. I go, I don't really share that belief. And you should have seen the look on Urbanic's face. It was like, oh my God, you are telling Al Davis that the guy that he loves is no good. And so I could see him lean back in the chair, and he goes, he's like, oh, you don't like him, huh? And I'm like, he just, the biggest game of his year, he was the reason they lost. I mean, he just dropped everything, dropped balls that hit him in the hands. So he can stretch the seam with the best of them, all this stuff. So I'm like, yeah, but he doesn't catch the ball. I go, you're not great if you can't catch, and especially for tight end. I go, I want to. He goes, he's talking to Billy, my friend. He's like, you guys like singles. I like to hit home runs. And I said, well, guess what? I'd rather have a tight end that catches every pass on 3rd and 6 than the tight end that drops 3rd and 6 passes and occasionally can catch a 40-yard ball down the seam. And he gave me a kind of a look like, oh. And sure enough, 3 weeks later, they draft Ricky freaking Dudley. And
they drafted
I called my buddy and I just
draft.
I just start laughing.
Oh my God,
it's like that. It's classic.
Yeah, they drafted a 9th. And like I said, I just did the off the top of my head. He was 6'6", 255. My God, there's some bad players in that 96 draft. Lawrence Phillips was taken 6th. Oh, that's a bummer.
Oh.
But here's the thing: is like
Dudley couldn't catch, and it was the biggest game of his year, and he was terrible.
The next pick, Willie Anderson, who should be a Hall of Famer, offensive tackle, Cincinnati, picking one pick because that was Al though. Height, weight, speed. Height, weight, speed. Yeah, height, weight, speed.
Loved height, weight, speed.
6'6", 255. And the guy,
James Jett had more job security than most of the coaches, and he couldn't play dead.
I love that term, by the way. He couldn't play dead.
I mean, it was like amazing. Term. The guy would, he would miss water if you threw him out of a boat. It was that kind. But yeah. So I don't know how we got on that, but anyway.
Yeah. Whatever. Good.
Couple last thoughts here. Thoughts. There were a lot of combine rumors this week. Green Bay shopping Jair Alexander. New York Giants have made trading for Matthew Stafford their top priority. Tony Pauline says the Niners, Steelers, and Patriots all are interested in adding Joe Flacco. A lot of talk out of Cincinnati today that Trey Hendrickson, that the Bengals are going to trade Trey Hendrickson if they can't meet his asking price, and they're not going to wait around. Steelers, they say, have interest in a reunion with Javon Hargrave. He could be going back there. Titans are shopping Harold Landry. That came out today. So there were an awful lot of NFL notes for sure from the Combine, and there was even more the other day. But any of those stand out to you, John? Any of those NFL stories intrigue you? Those were the big ones for sure. There's a couple more. The Eagles say they're going to try to make a strong effort to re-sign Zach Bond, but the Niners are after Bond. The Patriots may shop Joe Milton in a trade, according to Greg Bedard, who's very respectable out of that market. Travis Kelce will not retire. He's coming back for another year. The Eagles only want Myles Garrett if they can, as a block to going to the Commanders. Otherwise, they'll pass. But Andrew Berry, the GM of the Browns, says that Myles Garrett ain't going anywhere.
That's leverage. He's gone.
Commanders have given Jonathan Allen permission to seek a trade. That's interesting.
That's an interesting
Cowboys are going to say goodbye to Trey Lance and maybe go after Quinn Ewers. And maybe Rodgers would like to be reunited with Devontae with the Rams if indeed they trade Stafford. And since he's going to make Jamar Chase the highest paid non-quarterback in football, the Titans GM says he'll shop the number 1 pick. Those are pretty much the stories out there. And then, of course, as we hit the one before, Rams say they're fine with Jimmy Garoppolo as their number 1 quarterback. Any of those stories
being used?
Yeah, any of those stories intrigue you?
The two that would affect the 49ers the most is that Jonathan Allen, he's going into the last year of his deal at $15 million. And what's starting to happen in the NFL is if a guy has no more guaranteed money left on his deal, that's when he wants to start working, just like Trent Williams. I got no more guaranteed money, so I want out. Trey Hendrickson is the one to me that's very intriguing because people don't realize this because he plays in Cincinnati and he's not the dynamic athlete, but he's just ruthless. And his technique might be the best in the league. I mean, he's just that good. Got drafted by the Saints in the 3rd round, and now with Cincinnati,
plays super
6'5", 270. He's so good. And the thing is, just to put him in perspective for those who don't realize it, over the last 5 years, the most sacks in the NFL, it goes T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson. He's 31. He's still really good. He's in the last year of his deal at $16 million and has no more guaranteed money. So he wants more guaranteed money. The problem with the Bengals is, first of all, they're cheap ass. Second of all, they've got to want to get a deal done with T. Higgins. And then they want to get a deal done with Jamar Chase. They're not going to have enough money. They're already paying Burrow a ton. So Trey Hendrickson goes on the block because Cincinnati can't pay him A. And B, he's got no more guaranteed money, and he's not going to play for the money that he's making because he wants more guaranteed money as a veteran. I don't know if the Niners could get him, but I like Myles Garrett a lot. But Hendrickson would probably be less. and he's almost as good. I know that Myles Garrett is impressive and he's got the muscles upon muscles upon muscles, but if you put Trey Hendrickson, and I wrote a piece about this the other day because I looked at it and saw that he had no money. So they're talking edge rushers, and everybody wants to talk about Myles Garrett, and I get it. And you and I have talked about Myles Garrett a ton of times. But you want somebody across, Khalil Mack's a complete free agent. I understand that at the age of 34. You want somebody who's going to get after the quarterback, and you want relentlessness from both edges. Trey Hendrickson would really help your defense, and he's vastly underrated. 70 sacks over the last 5 years, which is third in the league in that period behind Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. The guy can play big time. He's a big time.
Oh yeah. The other kind of interesting nugget today, Walter Nolan, the Niners met with Walter Nolan, and he, I guess, is a Niner fan who grew up rooting for Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman, and that was very cool. Okay, last question. Right as we're sitting here on the 26th of February, Combine still coming up, starting tomorrow. Got all free agency to go. Draft not till late April. So we're literally, I think it might be literally the draft might be 2 months from today. I think it might be like the 26th of April, something like that. What's your plan for 11? Right now, if I said to you, you can do whatever you want at 11. Anything you want. Do you have even the basics of a plan, or are you in full discovery mode still?
Boy, they could go in a number of different directions. I would move if I'm going to go offensive line. I'm moving down because I think there's a lot of them, and I don't think there's anybody at that point, unless it's Campbell, the kid at LSU, that somehow falls to that point. Then I think you have a left tackle because look, I like Trent, and I like what Lynch said about Trent. But he's 37. He's going to his age 37 season. You got to get an idea of getting a left tackle for the foreseeable future, especially giving Brock all that money. So I might move back. If there's certain defensive linemen, I love Kenneth Grant. I've told you that, and then saw his interview today, and he's awesome. You just mentioned Walter Nolan. I think Walter Nolan's going to be really, really, really good, and so that's why they're meeting with him. So I like that plan. Although I think in free agency, as you said, DJ Jones is out. There's a couple of guys along the defensive line that I might think they might be able to fill holes with. Mike Green, the guy, out of Marshall, he's a little undersized, so I don't love that. And I do get afraid of small school guys, but that guy can really play. So there's a number of different directions. Along the defensive line, I love Grant and Nolan. Along the offensive line, I think there's a couple of guys, but I'm not going guard. I'm not going guard 11. I'm not going guard in the first round. I got to get myself some interior defensive linemen. If I had to, let's say that there were no trade options whatsoever. You couldn't move up, couldn't move down. You're on the clock at 11 and you got to pick somebody. It would to me, it would be between Grant and Walter Nolan. I think they would probably go Nolan just because of the fit. I think he fits better. So I would say that that's where I think they would go given that opportunity. But I do think that they're going to entertain moving down because John Lynch said today in that press conference that they want to stock up on draftable guys. And so I wouldn't, they want to get younger. They want to get cheaper. So I would not be surprised whatsoever if they move down even for a few spots to pick up another, fourth, fifth, mid-round kind of a guy because they want to stock up on draft picks.
Yeah.
What about, let me throw back to you. What would you do? What would you do? You're the man. What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Offensive tackles I know are hard to find. They're really hard to find. And generally, you got to pick them up high. But I'll tell you, there's a few of them that I really like in this draft that are going to go lower. I like Emory Jones from LSU, and I like Anthony Belton from NC State, and they're projected to go in the 90s. Now it's a little bit of a risk because I don't like a lot of these guys, but I like those two guys quite a bit. And they're going to go in, more like day 2, second or third round. So I would try to play to see if I could go for Emory Jones or Anthony Belton in the third round. But if I was going offensive tackle in the first round, I like Membu from Missouri. Just 6'4", 330, long arms. To me, he never lunges. He's never off balance.
I think the Niners you got to get offensive line versatility because I really think they need a replacement for Trent eventually. But what I think is that they need help at guard. They need help at tackle potential. I think you need a versatile kind of a guy that you could play in either of those positions. Like Simmons did that for Ohio State. They got a couple of guys who did that. Everybody loves Booker, the guard out of Alabama, and I do too. but I'm not taking him in 11. I'm not even taking a guard in the first round. I can't. I just saw Purdy in the third round be the best guard, rookie guard in the league. So can I turn around and take an interior offensive lineman with that kind of pick? I just don't think I can.
Yeah, no, I know. I hear you. We got some people here in the supers here. This one right here, Justin's like, I'm pounding the table for Bama left guard Tyler Booker. He's 325. He's a devastating run blocker. He is a big time difference maker. I mean, you won't have a problem running it inside the 5 if you have Tyler Booker. I'll tell you the guy that really intrigues me at the guard position is Donovan Jackson, who is the Ohio State kid. He's 6'4", he's 300 pounds. He's a guard. But when Josh Simmons went out in the Oregon game with an end-of-the-year injury, they plugged Jackson from guard to left tackle, and he didn't miss a beat. They won the national championship. So I like Donovan Jackson quite a bit. He's a great athlete. He's more of a guard than a tackle, but I really do like him quite a bit. I think he's probably more of a second-round pick than a first-round pick. But I would trade
nobody. Yeah, I would
trade back. I would trade back. I would trade back, and I would either take if in the 20s, I would go for either Kenneth Grant or Walter Nolan. Some people like Derek Harmon. I like Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M a lot. I think he's a beast. I mean, he's 280, he's super fast. So I would trade back in from 11, maybe once or twice, try to get around 20, and then take either Walter Nolan or Shamar Stewart or Kenneth Grant. That's what I would do. I'll say this though. I did see Tetaroa McMillan at 17, and he's got Luther Burden falling out of the first round. And Luther Burden, I mean, I'm looking at this receiving class, and I don't think the Niners, if the Niners improve their O-line and their D-line, and that's all they improved, I don't think they can win next year because they're not winning with Pearsall, JJ, and Cowing, and no Ayuk, and I don't expect the Ayuk to do much this year, and no Deebo. I mean, you're going to have to get somebody. You're going to have to invest in somebody, either a free agent receiver or a draft receiver. And Luther Burden III, a buddy of mine who scouts for one of the New York franchises, not the Giants, the other one, told me that he thinks Luther Burden III is Malik Neighbors. Now, a lot of people don't believe that because Malik Neighbors went top 10, but let's wait to see what Tetaroa McMillan and Luther Burden run. Because if Tetaroa McMillan at 6'5", 210 runs sub 4.4, he's probably going in the top 15. And then Luther Burden is just a tough. I mean, if you watch Missouri football, this guy is a tough, fast. He's Deebo. It's hitches, it's screens, it's all this short stuff, and he's a run after the catch monster. I'd be very eager to see what he runs. If he runs a slowish 40, maybe he'll go in the second round, as Kuiper says. But I don't see that, man. I think he's going to run a great 40, and I think Burden and McMillan are first-round picks, and I think they're both very good NFL receivers. And I don't love this receiver group. I don't love this receiver group very much. I like Trey Harris. After that, other than that, I don't like most of these receivers. But Burden, Burden's like a super tough East St. Louis kid who's just like, you hit him hard. He's like, is that all you got? I mean, he's like that. He pops up off the surface and is just like, he's like a Steve Smith or something. He is tough. This guy's tough. So
there's a guy to go Krug on you, and you'll know who this is, but I'm going to go Krug on you a little bit, like third, fourth round, maybe fifth round, third, fourth round, probably because he's going to run fast at the combine. There's a guy named Jalen Royals from my alma mater, Utah State University. I'm not a homer because I didn't like Jordan Love when he came out. I'm like, people are crazy. Royals is going to run in the 4.3s, and he's thick. He's like maybe 6 foot, 200. He's a Niners kind of a guy. He's tough, but he has the speed that the Niners don't possess. They tried it with Danny Gray. They've tried to find that speed guy. This guy can run. He's had
a great postseason. He was the Shrine Bowl Offensive Player of the Week. Good. And then he was the Senior Bowl Offensive Player of the Week.
Yeah, and I'm not saying first round. I'm not saying first round at all. I'm saying if they got interior defensive line, they need offensive line. We know they might need a safety, although I like your idea on Holland. They need a tight end or a move tight end, I think, because I think the Juice is going to be gone. They need a move tight end and they need our H-back move tight end type, and I think that they're going to get that at some point in the draft. So they need a lot. But if this kid was around in the 3rd round, he's compact, and I'm not saying he's Deebo, but he's kind of built a little bit like that, and he can play, and he's fast.
He's a major leaper, too. He's a major
he can play.
Leaper.
And so that could be something, because they need somebody, like you said, in the interim to make sure that Brandon Ayuk is all the way back. Now, are you going to do that with a rookie because you've already got Pearsall there, or are you going to do it with a veteran? They'll probably do it with a veteran. But I'm saying if that kid's sitting there, I like him. And I'm not a homer because he went to where I went to school. Because like I said, Jordan Love, I was like, oh, the Packers are going to didn't like him. But he's pretty good.
Bobby Wagner went there.
Right? Yeah, I mean, Bobby Wagner.
Bobby Wagner went there. Utah State's kind of underrated. That's going to do it for us tonight. We're let's see, how far are we into this live stream? We're about almost 2 hours, an hour and 50 minutes. Let me hit some of these supers before we get out of here, and then so we make somebody. Dusty Gold said Tolbert in the house. Tommy looks like was in the house earlier. I sent him a link, but he didn't jump in. But
dude, he's like 18 beers by now. He's not jumping in.
Wait a second, he did send me a thing. He says, I'm topped out for the day.
See, that's it.
Yeah, we can do something that night next week.
Well, this is the best. Ben Affleck's double chin has the best avatar in the history of avatars.
There we go. Oh, wait.
Where is it? There it is.
Oh, look at that. Is that a pumpkin? Is that a pumpkin? I think that's a pumpkin.
Is that a pumpkin? You're just happy to see me.
I think that's a pumpkin, hopefully. Ben Affleck's double chin says, need someone like Moran Norris. Is that hard to find? Someone like him in the draft? That guy lead blocked like a madman for Frank Gore in all of his Pro Bowl seasons, all pro seasons. Yeah, Moran Norris, big, thick, tough. Almost, I mean, he was tough. But
that's what I'm saying. Like they're going to get, I think, a tight end who can do both and can hopefully at some point take over for Kittle, a move tight end that they can use. And Juice is going to be gone, and this guy's a rookie, and it's exactly what Lynch said at the press conference today. Kyle Juszczyk, great guy, but they're gonna make finally getting a backup tight end to Kittle a priority. They've got to. Man.
They got to. It's an epic year for.
And he's gonna have to be a move tight end fullback type that can move people.
BV50 is a brand new member of the John Lund channel. That's what that little indication. Man. So BV, we always give the new members a little money.
Yeah, absolutely. Give him a little love.
Claudaddy Arcades, who is sponsoring our trip to Scottsdale for spring training.
Are you going there this weekend?
Yeah, we're going.
Oh, I got to go.
I'm fired up.
That's the greatness of this job. Is like I could probably leave tomorrow if I need to.
I know, seriously.
I got to be anywhere. I just got to
take
my
golf. I'm taking the boys out to the Point Hilton Resort for dinner.
Oh, you're taking your boys with you?
Yeah, I'm bringing Kev.
So
Kev's
jealous.
Coming. My older boy Ben.
Have they ever been down to a spring training with you?
Well, Kev and me and my younger boy went a couple years ago, but my middle child Ben didn't get a chance to go, and he's a big golf fan. So I'm like, hey man, let's bring some golf. Let's bring our clubs and we'll play some desert golf.
I was just talking to my son George. He goes to ASU. Last Thursday it was like 88. Like, bring your shorts. People don't realize, and March. Look, the Giants aren't paying me. Nobody's paying me. But I took my son when he was 12 in 2016, and we stayed there for 5 days, and we did 2 games every day. So we did day, night. And the Giants were so nice to him. Buster Posey took him to the locker room. He met everybody, got all these autographs. Euclid was working for the Cubs at the time, and that was the year they won the World Series. They took him into the Cubs clubhouse. Like, it was the greatest experience of his freaking life. And spring training, it's not as cheap as it used to be, but it's so fun. Guys are all laid back. Like, I know it's not cheap, but if you want to see some fun baseball and you don't do that tour like some people do in the summertime to all the ballparks, they're all sitting there. Everybody's laid back and cool. Spring training is awesome to go to. That's cool you're going this weekend, man. And I know you'll do great shows and everything, but it is so fun to go down there with your kids. It's awesome.
My favorite ballpark is the one that the Diamondbacks and the Rockies share in Talking Stick. It's called Salt River Fields.
It's nice.
And they have a berm that goes from foul line to foul line, and it's about, it seems like 50 yards long, goes all the way from the base of the wall all the way up. I just want to sit in the berm and have a couple tall boys and watch some Giants and maybe
sit on the grass. Don't even sit
on the grass.
In the seat. Sit on the grass.
No, I don't want to sit on. I don't want to sit in the seats.
Fun, dude.
Just gonna sit on the berm and have a couple beers, and then I want to take my kid to play a little desert golf. So,
Man, so
fired
much
up,
fun.
fired up, man.
It's
Super
plus
fired up.
Scottsdale Stadium is like right in the middle of everything. I mean, it's
That's
not
the
the
best.
best.
We're staying in
stadium down there,
Scottsdale. It's gonna be great.
just right there. It's like the Cubs have a great field. The Sloan Field that they built a few years ago was great. There's so many cool spots, and I hate to say this, even the Dodgers facility is really cool. I think they share it with the White Sox.
Yeah,
That's a cool
surprise.
facility.
No,
I mean, it's just anyway. That's going to be fun. You're going to have so much fun.
I'm going Giants Padres in Peoria. I'm going Giants Angels in Scottsdale. I think I'm going Giants D-backs or Giants Rockies Wednesday. It's just a quick trip.
So
we're going to play around a golf. We're gonna go see 2 or 3 baseball games. I'm gonna go into the clubhouse, interview some guys, and
that'd be fun.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
By the way, Claude Daddy, I thought Abdul Carter had a shoulder injury.
Claude Daddy says Abdul Carter made a preemptive surgery on his foot prior to the season, potentially out for 8 weeks. If he slips and is available at 11, do we take him? Oh yeah, you absolutely.
Are you kidding? He's the best player in the draft. You know what I would do right now if I was a Niners fan? Start doing the whole thing about he smokes a lot of weed and he's got major problems and he's had all sorts of just start spreading rumors, man. If I was the Niners, that's what I'd do. Just start spreading rumors all over. Get him to the insiders. Say, Schefter, I heard Abdul Carter, man, is a bad guy. Like, I mean, that seriously, that guy's should be. If I'm Tennessee, knowing
the Niners' luck, everybody would pass on him and the Eagles would get him at 32.
I know, right? I mean, we need like a Randy Moss situation or a Laramie Tunsil or, like you said, a Jalen Carter.
Where's the gigantic gas mask?
Right.
Can we send this guy a
Warren
mask?
Sapp where, somebody just keeps slipping, on Aaron Rodgers or whatever. Like, they need – Abdul Carter is awesome. Somebody
send Abdul Carter a 6-foot bong.
Yes. Somebody Photoshop it. You don't even have to do that anymore. Just somebody who's got expert Photoshop skills. I'm sure there's someone watching right now. Get a picture of Abdul Carter just with what we used to call, we had one in our dorm room. I'm sure you did too. The old Red Zeppelin, one of these big giant bongs or something and a mask. Oh, you can't draft that guy. Oh,
I have no idea what you're talking about, John. Flippin' Shrub said, any locker room drama you've seen in your career, Larry, that most people don't know about. Beef between players or moments that were heated.
Larry's got beef, but he doesn't want to talk about it.
Oh, man, I got all kinds of beef. Jeff Kent and I grabbed each other one time like this, and we were up against the wall, and he was mad because he had said, all you people here in the Bay Area, you're all so stupid to pay these prices. So I brought the soundbite back to the bunker at Oracle Park, and I said, hey, when Ralph is in a commercial with Tom, have Ralph come in. I want him to hear this. So he heard it, and I go, Ralph, do you want this? And he's like, oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. We're going to use it, Craig. It's going to be great. It'll be freaking great. Thank you for getting it. So they started playing this, Jeff Kent, you people in the Bay Area are so stupid for paying these real estate prices. And then he's looking at me, and he's like, man, and he's like, all you do, and he's pointing right at me, all you do is bitch about the game.
Oh, that's a great drop.
He's like, hey, man, you need to enjoy the game more. You got to enjoy the game more. So I didn't say anything. I let him say it. And then I walked down the hall, and I downloaded it to the station, and they played it. And when he came up in the first inning, now batting for the Houston Astros, Jeff Kent. Boo! Kent, screw you. We hate you. Boo!
That's awesome.
Tons of people just all cascading of boos. And I go into the clubhouse the next day, and he's like, "Hey, you played that on the radio." I'm like, "Yeah, you said it. Own it." And I just started walking away, and he grabbed me. And I'm grabbed him by the collar. We're up against the wall, and I'm like, and now the Houston, clubbies and personnel people are.
You could have sued him because someone would have definitely seen that.
Yeah, people are running over and grabbing him, grabbing me, and I'm like, hey, don't try to intimidate me, bro. You said it, own it, be a big boy. I'm like, yeah, could you leave? I'm like, yeah, I could, I can leave.
Yeah, they don't like it. The only two I've had a few,
but I haven't seen too many.
The two biggest ones, and look, I would have loved it at the time. Remember when Sean Kemp, not Sonic Sean Kemp, Portland Trailblazers Sean Kemp, he ballooned up to about 280 pounds. There was a lockout in the NBA, and he got massive. And then he got traded for Brian Grant, the old King, to the Blazers. And he had gotten so much trouble with drinking and drugs and all that kind of stuff. David Stern had suspended him from drinking. He wasn't supposed to be drinking. So Portland is for people who don't know, is the number one place per capita for strip clubs. And the reason you know why, it just rains every day. So people are depressed. They go to strip clubs, right? So the Blazers used to go to this one strip club all the time.
I've been there, by the way.
Bonzi
My buddy's
Wells.
a cop in Portland.
Yeah, tons of strip clubs. So the Blazers thought nothing of going to those. You'd see Blazers all the time, Blazers players in the strip club. Nobody even really thought about it. So we go in there, and not that I'm a big strip club guy, but, so we go in there. And I see over in the corner, Sean Kemp is making it rain like a mother. And he's got champagne. He's sucking down champagne. So what do me and guys like you and I do? Next day, I didn't confront the guy. The next day on the air, and I was a beat reporter for the Blazers, too, and doing a radio show. I go on my radio show in the afternoon, and I'm like, Sean Kemp, man, was partying, making it rain. He's pouring champagne all over strippers and all that kind of stuff. And I thought he wasn't supposed to be in a bar. I don't think he was supposed to be drinking. I go in that night into the Blazers locker room. I didn't even see the guy. His massive hand grabs me on the shoulder, spins me around. I fall down. I look back up, and he's going off on me. And the only thing I said to him is, I said, Sean, you got a lot of money, man. If you want to give me some of your money, go right ahead. And then he kind of walked off. But dude, I've never been more scared. I mean, he's all of 6'11", like at that point with the Blazers, 280 pounds. And I'm thinking to myself, he's going to hit me. It's going to hurt, but I'm going to be rich. Like, that's the only thing that's going through my mind at that point.
I never think along those lines. I never do. I really never do. I don't want to. I just want to talk to the guys, and I don't need to ask them why they didn't do this or didn't make a certain play. I definitely don't want to embarrass anybody. I really don't. I just but I don't know. I haven't had any real issues in the locker room because I don't do those kinds of interviews. I don't go up to people. Most of my interviews start with, "Hey man, where are you from? Tell me a little bit about yourself." I don't go up to guys, "Hey man, you missed a tackle in the fourth quarter. What the hell's going on?" I don't do that. I just don't do that. And if I did, maybe I'd get a different response.
Nobody really does that. That's what's funny is everyone is
some people do.
Everyone
people
barks
like that.
and barks and barks and barks, and then in front of the player themselves, this is what I think pisses off players, is that everybody's a chihuahua in front of the player, and then they leave and then they talk big, and the player's like, "Well, you were right there. You didn't say anything to me about it." I mean, that's I think people respect that. If you can do it in a way, and this, you always wait to the end of an interview. You talk, and if you're going to do something tough, you ask them at the end of it, but you do ask it in a respectful way. And a lot of times, this is the reality of it, and this. The reality of it is they're waiting for it. They know. Like, if they screw up, they know, and they just want to get it out of the way.
It's all about how you ask.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you an example of one. When Ray McLeod fumbled in the Dallas playoff game.
Oh,
okay.
Right.
Now, I had a good relationship with Ray. I talked to him a bunch. So I'd built up a trust with him a little bit. And at the end of that week in the locker room, I'm like, "Hey man, can we talk openly about the turnover in the playoff game?" It's a turnover in a playoff game. Now, they won the game. So if they had lost the game, he probably wouldn't have been as open-minded. But they won the game. And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And I said to him, "Hey, look, it was like early in the game. You fumbled the ball. You haven't fumbled all year. You fumbled the ball. You didn't actually touch the ball again for about 30 or 40 minutes of real time. I mean, it was probably mid, he fumbled in the first quarter. He probably, got the next return middle of the second quarter. But I go, you had a half hour of real time to think about that. What,
that would suck.
If you could be honest with us, take us, what's going through your head. You haven't fumbled all year. So what is going through your head in those 30 minutes after you fumbled and before you got your next return? On the next return, he busted one. It was like 40 yards. He got a nice run. I go, "You busted one on your next return, but what were you thinking about that in those 30 minutes?" And you know what? The guy was like, "Hey, you know what? I kept thinking, I let my team down. I can't believe I let my team down. I haven't fumbled all year. I let my team down. Next time I take it, I'm making something happen. When I got the ball, I was intent to make something happen." And, Now, some people would say, hey, that's kind of, you cross the line. You're asking him about his failure, but you know what? It was human. And
Yeah,
I'd
okay.
gotten enough credit with him from, he knew I wasn't trying to gotcha. I was just trying to peel the onion a little bit and try to show people how much pressure there is in these playoff games. And if you're a quarterback, you touch the ball on every play. But if you're Ray, you fumble a ball on special teams, you don't touch the ball for another 30, 40 minutes. And you got guys on the sidelines looking at you and you feel terrible and you've let your team down. You know it. So, I mean, he gave me a really good answer and it was really good. And I was like, dude, thank you. But he's like, he kind of gave me the indication at the end of the interview. He's like, hey, man, I kind of know who you are and I kind of know where you're coming from. But like, in other words, I wouldn't have given that answer to everybody. So I mean,
I also think
you got to sometimes you got to work on the same way you got to cultivate relationships in business.
Huge.
You got to cultivate relationships with the guys in the room. And I don't mean
huge.
You got to suck up to them, but there's got to be some kind of mutual understanding.
A lot of times they want to talk about it, and the reality is that you have to ask these questions. That's your job. So I remember we had Alden Smith on from the Super Bowl, Pop and I in New York. And he had one of those handlers with him. You know how that is. And what happened was that was the year, he had the accelerator stuck down and all that kind of stuff and had just had major problems. And so his handler comes up to us. And usually, I mean, we had Kaepernick that year with all these different guys. And they're always nice to the local guys. So he sits down. The handler says, you can talk to Alden about everything but the drug and alcohol stuff. And we said, well, then we don't want him on. Like, that's why we're going to talk to him. And the handler said, well, please don't, and all that kind of stuff. And we kind of shook, yeah, whatever. So he sits down, and of course, what do you think is the first thing that Papa asks Alden Smith? And he didn't ask it in a subtle way, like maybe you and I would. He goes, Alden, he's something to the effect of, Alden, you got major problems, man. What the hell's going on in your life? I mean, he just directly threw a fastball right down the middle. And the handler is losing his mind. He's doing like this, like an air traffic controller, like he wants him off the air, get him out of here. This is, he didn't like it. Alden, to his credit, this is a young Alden Smith, holds his hand up. Let me see if I can get it in the light. Holds his hand up to the handler and says, no. I got to do this. I got to answer these questions, especially in San Francisco. I do. And he proceeded to do probably the most competent and insightful interview that he had ever done. He was clearly sober. I don't know about that night in New York, but he was clearly sober at the time and had an agenda to talk about this because nobody had talked to him about it. Everyone was afraid to approach this big man that had, he had some anger issues. And it was the most amazing 10 minutes he had done. And it wasn't because of me and Greg. It's just he opened the door up to it so we could candidly talk about it. And he had an agenda to talk about it. He didn't want to sit there and duck it anymore. So he just did it for like 10, 15 minutes. I still have the interview actually as part of like a reel that I have. It was just an amazing thing. And people don't realize that sometimes these guys want to let it out. And they want to talk about it. They don't want people to speculate or wonder or these kind of things. They actually want to say, look, let me take this head on. Which is, that's 10, 12 years ago. Nowadays, these guys can do it. They've got their forums, they've got their podcasts, they've got their things. They can explain it. They'd rather explain it. They'd rather talk to their friends about it, whatever, and then put it out on whatever platform they want to discuss it. But there is a lot of guys that would just say, you know what, because the technique of interviewing, for those who don't know, and now look, if something just has to be talked about, you got to lead with it, and that's the majority of your conversation. But a lot of times what you do is you talk about something with someone, you gain their trust, and then you know what? You ask them the tough questions at the end, because if they want to end the interview, you've already got 8 or 10 minutes on tape anyway, and you ask the tough stuff last a lot of times. But nowadays, guys are they understand and they know what's coming, and they know that you got to ask the questions, because if you don't, someone else is, and they're going to get the content on their page. So we're all out there going, look, we got to get people to click on our stuff. I got to ask the tough questions. It's just the way it is. Now, some people, like we started the show with John Lynch. John Lynch is a master at saying something but saying nothing. Like today, he had some pretty insightful things that he said, but a lot of times, like the one guy asked him about Brandon Ayuk, point blank. He sidestepped that and started talking about how the team needed to get younger. So what that tells me instinctually as a reporter is there might be something to that, because he didn't want to answer the question that Brandon Ayuk, were they shopping Brandon Ayuk? He goes, you're always going to get that when you have really good players, but the team needs to get younger. And it's like, just went right around the question. Like, whoa. Why did you just sidestep that question? Because if you're sidestepping a question, that tells me that you don't want to talk about it, because there might be some truth to it.
Yeah,
so that was weird.
Anyway,
that's what we started with is Lynch. So maybe we can turn this whole thing back to Lynch for a second. But yeah.
Well, and that's part of That's part of being a good executive, is to be able to diffuse things and sidestep things.
You know who the best of it? Billy Bean was the best at it. Billy
Bean, Bob Myers.
The biggest. Bob Myers was great at it. Like, you'd sit there, because we used to have Bob Myers on weekly, and Bob Myers would come on and you'd think, man, that was really, really good. And then, like, I'd be driving home listening back to the interview, and I'd go, he didn't say anything. Like, we had him on for 15 minutes. We asked him all the right questions. He didn't say a damn thing.
Yeah. Or they don't, like Ned Coletti was great at, like, answering questions. I mean, he would make you feel like he was straight up front with you, but then he wouldn't necessarily give you any extra anything. But I always enjoyed interviewing him. Moises Rosales says, odd question. Would you rather buy a premium Purdy rookie card or a cheaper but good Bryce Eldridge card? In other words, who are you higher on? Oh, Brock Purdy.
I have many
guys. Bryce Eldridge.
Cards.
Bryce Eldridge is a tall hitter. Okay. Go look at the history of baseball. Tall hitters are either Hall of Famers or they're minor leaguers.
Aaron Rodgers.
Minor leaguers.
Aaron Jones.
Damon Minor is the Giants hitting coach. What was he? Tall hitter. What was he? Minor leaguer. All right. For every Darryl Strawberry, Dale Murphy, Frank Howard, there's 20 guys who are tall, whose strike zone is massive, and they just can't do it. Now, Bryce Eldridge had a great year. He had a great year.
We saw that the other day. And you don't game plan for guys in spring training. You're just trying to get your work in. But if you're going to swing at bad pitches low and away, I'll just throw you, I don't need a scouting report for that. So he hits the home run his first at bat. And I'm not down on the kid. I'm just saying, like any young hitter, he chases. So he saw 6 pitches in his first 2 at bats the next game. Every one of them was a slider away, and he swung at every single one of them and missed them. It was
he went from A ball to AAA last year. He needs to spend, and then this is the thing about it. I mean, it drove me absolutely bonkers listening to people say, well, they don't need to sign the polar bear because they've got Eldridge. It's like, that's the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard. Eldridge may never play in the big leagues. Never. He may never make it. And sitting there, all these Giants fans, and I'm one of them, but let's be honest about this. The Giants talk glowingly. There's 2 sets of prospect conversations. Their future prospects, everybody thinks are all going to be stars, and their past prospects, who 95% of them were busts. So how do you reconcile that? I mean, do you know how many years I've been talking Giants baseball on KMBR? Oh, here, they don't want to move Kurt Ainsworth. They don't want to move Jerome Williams. You can't move Jesse Foppert. You can't trade Gary Brown.
Those are
you
painful.
Can't trade Gary Brown. You traded Tim Alderson? What in the hell's wrong with you? Giants fans lost their S when they traded Tim Alderson for Freddie Sanchez. Freddie Sanchez, I think, had won a batting title. Tim Alderson was a minor league pitcher who never did jack in the majors. So don't tell me any more about prospects. I don't want to hear about prospects. Show me players. And Eldridge might be great, but guess what? There's like a percentage chance that he's nothing. And what percentage is that? It ain't 1%. It ain't 5%. It's like 35%. So let's pump the brakes on Bryce Eldridge, all right? He had a nice year last year. He rocketed through the minor leagues. The people that I know who know his game well say he's one of the worst defensive first basemen in all of pro ball. So he will not be playing first base. He'll be a DH, all right? He's a DH. So we're talking about a DH that's probably 2 years away from contributing at the major league level. I think everybody just needs to pump the brakes and realize that you can't, this is baseball. I did an interview with Elliot Ramos 2 spring trainings ago. Okay. And I'm like, he'd already been in the minors for a long time. I'm like, Elliot, this has got to be your year, man. They got to give you a shot. Not only was it not his year, he didn't have a good next spring. And he only got a shot this last year was when they had injuries in May. And it's like, hey, let's call up Elliot Ramos. He almost didn't get his shot, period. So, I mean, this idea that, and I was saying 2 years ago, dude, You've done everything you can do. And he's like, no, I got to go back to AAA. I got to prove it. So the baseball thing is it's a long freaking road. And this guy's 20. 20 means he's a baby. And that means that, it's going to be 2 years for sure before that kid is ready to do anything in the major leagues. And it may never happen. So I'm not saying that I'm rooting against him. I'm rooting for him. And I hope it happens this year. But this whole, crazy talk like, oh, they shouldn't go after a good first baseman because they're going to block Bryce Eldridge. I mean, stop it. Stop it. I mean, you know how many Giants prospects? Angel Villalona was supposedly going to be amazing. Marco Luciano was supposed to be amazing. All these guys were supposed to be amazing. None of them have ever done anything. So it's just stop. We need to stop. Prospect's a prospect and nothing more until proven otherwise. Steve Cass, new member. Welcome aboard, Steve. Aaron Loss says, Larry, give us a 30-second bit of Trent Baalke. It's so funny that you would say that, Lowry, because I like our linebackers. Or you look at a Gerald Hodges, for example, Lowry. You see just a slow guy tripping over his feet who can't make plays. I see a guy with a lot of potential who's torn an ACL and needs a second chance. All right? That's what I see. That's what good old Trent Baalke sees when I look at a guy like Gerald Hodges.
Man, that was amazing. Because I was standing right there when he said that. And you've got it down. God, talk about a guy who knows how to manage up. I mean, my God. Can anybody manage up like Trent Baalke? Because he had no business doing anything he's done in the NFL, and yet there he is. God, he's like a cockroach. Took everything to get him out of Jacksonville. That was a nice, by the way. That was a great effort. That was worth whatever that person paid. Amazing.
$1.99.
Yeah,
that's going to do it for us. We're going to bolt for the door. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for being an outstanding sponsor. And thanks, of course, to our friends at Mancini's. Whether you shop online or visit in store, use that code KRUG10, KRUEG 10, and you'll get 10% off at any of Mancini's locations or online at their website, sleepworld.com. Support the show. Go buy a mattress if you need one. Tell them the Krug sent you. Save the money. Save the 10% by using the promo code. Johnny, shout out your channel, man. And if ever, we got almost 3,000 people watching this show right now. It would be great if every single one of you guys would take a minute before you jump and head over to John Lund's channel, John Lund Unleashed. And give him a like, give him a subscribe. He's just started his channel recently. He's trying to build it up. You guys know how hard that is and how long that takes. Give Johnny a like and a follow, and he puts out great content. A lot of stuff, same content that I'm putting out as far as topic matter. We're talking Niners, Giants, Warriors, Bay Area sports. So give him a follow, give him a like, give him a subscribe, and help him build his channel for sure.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, John Lund Unleashed on YouTube and other platforms. And then right now on johnlundunleashed.com, because I have a website, I do have a recap like we did tonight of John Lynch, and I even stole some video of the whole thing too and cut it up into pieces. So check it out, and you can see what John said, and check that out at johnlundunleashed.com. I do a blog every day in addition to the YouTube show and everything else. 8 a.m. Pacific is usually when we're on. We go as long as it takes, and then I'm like you, I do stuff all through the day. So if you want to stop by at 8 a.m. tomorrow in the morning, that would be grand. That's it.
Give John a like. Give John a subscribe. Follow him over there on his channel. Help him grow his channel. Thanks to all you guys for jumping in here. As far as tomorrow goes, tomorrow on the Krug Show.
Tomorrow.
Let me see. Let me check the schedule.
Krug Show tomorrow.
I always got to check the schedule. Okay, so what do I got tomorrow?
Thank you very much.
Tomorrow, we got a sponsor meeting in the morning. All right.
Oh, you man.
All right. So tomorrow at 6 p.m. Niners Nightly. Join me tomorrow night on KMBR from 6 to 7. And then from 9 o'clock tomorrow night, the return of Dieter. Dieter had a little girl, and he's taking a few weeks off.
For him, man.
He'll be back. Me and Dieter will be chopping it up tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. Friday morning at 9 a.m., Damon Bruce, 10:45. Chase Sr. is going to be in the house. And then Friday, join me at 6 o'clock for Niners Nightly. And looking forward to a fantastic rest of the week. Thanks to all of you guys. Thanks for supporting the channel. We have a store as well with a bunch of gear and stuff. You want T-shirts. There's a lot of cool stuff. We just started selling golf shirts with cool. I ordered a gray one. Kev's got a charcoal one. My other son's got a blue one. We got a Crew Show shirts with the patch. The basically in the top corner up here, our little logo. We got that in the corner of the shirt, and it's just a golf shirt. So they're really cool. Help support the show. Check out the Krug Show store on YouTube, and you can see it right there on YouTube. It's pretty easy to find. But for Johnny, I'm Larry. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning into the Krug Show on YouTube.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly